Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the 371st edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I'm your host, Steve Wellings, and joining me on the call, we have Andy Patterson, and hanging around somewhere in the background, grabbing himself a beer, is the one and only Ozzy Smith. Welcome to you all listening in. It's Sunday evening again, where we go live on YouTube from 8 p.m. The Patreon RSS feed updates shortly after the show concludes. Hello to everyone listening throughout the week on SoundCloud, Spotify, and iTunes. That's all the particulars out the way there, Andy. Let's get down to business, shall we? What the hell we're going to talk about tonight? Good question. Had a few questions coming in from the guys. Other than that, it's pretty bare. We will be going on to Froch Groves later on, as we were talking off air there. Tell me, first of all, how you getting on, Andy? How you feeling? Feeling good? Feeling strong?
Yeah, I was out in the garden today, did a bit of weeding, getting parts of the trees cut, hedge cut and that, and got my dad down to start giving me a hand to kind of stain oak the patio. So been busy, got a wee bit of tan in that as well, get my vitamin C levels up, doing my bit, a few beers a night, nice wee Green Label 15-year-old sitting here in the glass, ready to talk whatever shit we're going to talk about. How you doing? You good?
Yes, I am keeping well, actually. Not too bad at all. Been out and about. Son's birthday tomorrow. Had a bit of an incident last week, though. The brother-in-law came round and was trying to burn some rubbish. And before you know it, the wife comes in and says, we've got a bit of a problem outside. He set the barn on fire. We go outside. There's explosions going out left, right and centre. The whole barn's gone up. Had to get the fire brigade out and everything. And it's just an absolute shell, a big mess. That was last Sunday or Saturday, was it? I can't remember. I was talking to Ames at the time anyway. But yeah, it's a bit of a mess out there.
So it was Friday night?
Maybe it was I can't remember, Andy. It was one of the days last week anyway. I think it was Saturday, but yeah, it was just, it was a proper fight. It was like I'm going to get the kids in the car and get them to the end of the lane kind of fire. It was a bad one.
I hope he's paying for the replacement. The
I'm
brother-in-law.
not sure. He had all of his, the worst thing was his sister, my sister-in-law, like his girlfriend, is from Canada, and she just moved all of her stuff over and put it in that very shed that afternoon. So
Excellent.
There was like birth certificates of children and everything like floating about in the air. It was. I did feel sorry for her. Like, it was bad.
That's supporting a lot. Honestly,
that day, thousands of pounds on the boat. Put it in the barn, and woof, the whole thing went up, man.
Your brother-in-law's not getting his dick wet anytime soon, anyway, I don't think.
Those tears are still out on the cobbles as we speak, anyway. So yeah, he was quite upset, but we'll get over it. Nobody was hurt, thankfully. Nobody was hurt, anyway. Good to hear from you, Andy. Ozzy, you're back with us. How are you, sir? Keeping well?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, Steve. All good. Again, just getting on with things. Been out on the bike, couple of beers, relaxing. It's kind of by the by now, isn't it? It's all the same. Lockdown is the new is the norm. Hopefully, some good news this week in terms of relaxing all the conditions. And who knows? There's serious talks of promoters planning shows for July now behind closed doors, so we may not be too far off seeing live boxing once again. Although we'll come on to it after. But the big show in Poland involving Big Mario Swack and Kevin Johnson. So live boxing, we'll all get our fix when the pay-per-view show goes live in Poland in I think it's next month or later this month.
Yeah, you better get your pennies saved up for that one. Marius Whack against Kevin Kingpin Johnson. Are you that desperate for boxing that you would watch that, Ozzy? I'm sure you're not, are you?
Mate, it's about £2. So you can probably find it on the floor if you don't want it to be out your own back pocket. That's saying I won't be buying it. I couldn't think of anything. What an awful fight. It's going to be horrendous. But yeah, it's about 10 zloty or something like that from memory. So yeah, it works out about £2.
Yeah, desperate times call for desperate measures. You might find £2 on the floor. You might find one of those boys on the floor, maybe Kevin Johnson. The chat are all getting stuck in here already. Tosh Bear's in there. Welcome to you. Matt Dobson, Kaiser Koba, Lee the Alcoholic Froch, Porky's Corner's in there as well. Take Ames. Let's go up and have a good look, shall we? We don't usually do this. Josh Foster, Joseph Kennedy, Dan W, Mark Boxio. If I've missed you out, then, well, go fuck yourself, I suppose. Conan the Librarian, Boxing Channel, and Boxing Asylum. That's us. Okay, then, Andy. Evening to you as well, Tosh. Yeah, good to see you. Felix Sturm, Andy, 3 years in prison for tax evasion. He's a good fighter back in the day, was Sturm. He's going to be isolated in a cell, meals brought to the door, away from coronavirus. You wouldn't mind a good stint, I suppose, locked up at the moment, like old Felix.
I suppose he'll get in there out of harm's way, 3 squares a day and a bed for nothing on the taxpayer. But I tell you, the judge hasn't really fucked about here actually, because it's more than tax evasion he's been done for actually, because 3 years and 3 months in jail apparently, right? So Sturm's lawyer apparently wanted 2 years probation. That was rejected. So he got found guilty on 6 tax cases, found guilty and attempted 2 other tax fraud cases. Apparently this goes back to 2006 where he was paying his money through a Swiss firm. He's been done for also providing false information to tax authorities, and this was an absolute shocker actually. And I don't know why it came about, and I'm not an expert in legal matters, especially German legal matters for fuck's sake, but they've brought in the doping offence for the Fedor Chudinov fight when he got caught for the Stanisol for the rematch. So they've managed to bring that into criminal proceedings. And in the court, we actually heard that Sturm had actually went into a doping programme in Austria between December 2015 and January 2016. And the fight between Chudinov was 20th of February 2016, that same year. So what the judge basically says is the assault is basically put it as an assault charge, ABH. There's always, he's actually quoted as saying, there's always physical injury when boxing. However, the use of a doping agent ignored the agreement that Sturm had made with Chudinov. So we no longer have Chudinov's consent. There is an assault. So that was a very interesting outcome there, I think, legally. And that, but I mean, obviously, there's this big doping scandal going over just now over in Austria called Operation Aderlis, I think it's called. Something. A lot of cyclists and skiers and Nordic combined skiers have been caught up in it as well. And I think this is what's happened with Sturm. I think he's maybe been caught up in the same kind of programme. But it could be potentially would be a game changer actually if other countries would take the lead of what Germany's doing, especially in boxing and kind of combat sports. If you're caught doping and that gets taken into kind of criminal conviction and stuff like that, it could be a game changer. But yeah, 3 years and 3 months. Don't know if he'll do the full pokey like, but
yeah, about half of that, and they said it's an open prison as well, so he's laughing.
You'll get the come and go, I suppose. But I thought it quite somewhat shocking, but as well the judge actually rejected right out of hand any potential for, like, say, as I say, is getting his probation and doing his 2 years and stuff like outside, maybe on tag or whatever and that. But now they've squashed that right into prison. So best of luck to him. Just didn't pick up the soap in the shower.
Exactly. Exactly. Just looking at his career, actually, Andy, obviously he came to prominence in 2004. It was a career, I was real hardcore back then, so I mean, not like I am now, but so I would have followed his career quite closely. Real nice fighter, excellent jab, as you mentioned last week, lovely switch hitter as well. It was against Oscar De La Hoya that he came to prominence. A lot of people actually thought that he might have done enough to win that fight. Talk about the Oscar De La Hoya fight, first of all, before we go back to his German reign.
Yeah, well, I won the fight for me. I think I won it something like 116, 112. I don't think there's really much else we can say about it. At the end of the day, is they had to get. I think it was that fight they had to try and get Oscar to win in order to try and get the full unification fight with Hopkins for the undisputed title.
That's right.
I think Hopkins was on the undercard, but other than that, his career after that, he spent a wee bit of time kind of rebuilding stuff after the Oscar fight, and then obviously he stopped off Javier Castillejo, if I remember rightly.
Which was an upset, wasn't it? Castillejo was a big punching, experienced fighter, but he wasn't. He showed Sturm up then. I think it was like a man against a boy almost, the physical strength of Castillejo.
Yeah. Well, Castillejo was definitely he was a veteran by that point. One of the top fighters coming to Spain.
70 fights.
He was coming to Spain. It was one of the top fighters at that point, or definitely Fede fighters at that point. But they don't win the rematch. It was a rematch, wasn't it?
Yeah, he beat him on points in the rematch. He boxed clever. I think in the first fight, if I'm remembering it rightly, now it was 14 years ago, he boxed well early on against Castillejo, and then he started to really slow down and tire. And it may be a lack of experience. And then Castillejo took over and maybe stopped him in the 10th, I think it was. And he learned the lessons for the rematch.
I think the other thing as well, I don't know if it was, but he disciplined in regards to weight and stuff. Because I remember the Sebastian Sylvester fight. There obviously been a number of fights in between them, but then he fought Macklin. And for what I remember reading or hearing at the time, he had to dump something like 30 pounds for that fight. Close fight. Macklin probably aggrieved to not win it, but some people did have Sturm winning the fight. He had the Matt Murray debacle as well. He seemed to kind of just do enough, but I think it was the Daniel Gill fight. It was whereas I was more impressed with Gill at that point because he was going on the road winning fights and stuff, and that was a big shock. Sam Solomon got done for drugs as well. And then obviously he did Dan Barker when Barker, he won the title that Gill was holding
That's
at the
right.
time, and then obviously he's come back and beat him. But I remember, I can't remember if it was the first Tudor fight or the second one. Was that one of the fights where his dye and his glove started to kind of come off as well? There was
I don't think I've
allegations of
seen those
limiting.
ones, you know. I remember seeing him against Zabik. Was it Zabik, Sebastian Zabik? And they thought he was done, and he absolutely jabbed the head off Zabik. And I don't think I've ever seen many fights after that, apart from Barker, obviously.
I remember the Stieglitz fight.
I don't remember that one.
I do remember the Tudor fight. I'm sure it was one of the Tudor fights where there was an allegation. You could see it through the fight that I think he had red race on or something like that, Tudorov, and you could see it starting to kind of rub off. The actual dye or the actual red material on his gloves were actually kind of begin to run and just basically kind of peel off. And obviously, it might be the same fight that he got done for the Stanazol as well, steroids. So, yeah, he's obviously been unlucky to get caught as well for the drugs and that, because as we hear from Victor Conti, it's always about IQ testing. It's no drug testing. It's maybe just fucked up cutting, the cut-off period. But to go into a program like 6 weeks before the fight, I was always what I read and heard, and that is you took it like months beforehand. So when it was out your system, you still maintained and gained the benefits for months to come. So who did I know though?
No, I'm just going to say before we move on, it was 2006. He fought that guy Marcelino Masso, who was really old. He was about 41. He was a Samoan, big puncher. And Masso had upset Evans Ashira, who people might remember went up to super middleweight to fight Calzaghe. Or he wouldn't have fought Calzaghe by that point, I think. Anyway, who cares? Masso beat Ashira, got the WBA title surprisingly, and then Sturm outboxed him for the WBA title in 2006. And then it was in his first defense against Castelleo that he got stopped, for anybody who cares about that type of stuff. Jamie Pittman. I interviewed Jamie Pittman as well. Australian guy, nice fella, him. Might try and get him on the pod. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? While opening up our first guest, Ozzy, do you want to give us a brief rundown of this British Boxing Board of Control situation? I know they're saying about 5 fights behind closed doors, no ticket selling, whatnot. Give us a brief rundown while I bring up our guest, please.
Yeah, it's interesting that they've come out with this statement already. I'll just pull it up now and pull out some key highlights. But what is an interesting thing is talking about 5 fights already. I mean, it's tough at the moment that they're talking about this stuff, yet they've got out there and said that you can't do any sparring and things like that. So I assume that if things do get lifted, what's going to happen? It's great if you're a big-time promoter and you've got TV backing. So Sky, BT, ITV maybe, Channel 5. But your smaller hole promoters, I just don't know how they're going to do it, because Steve Goodwin's been openly spoken about it before, that there's no point in streaming stuff because there's no financial benefit. A lot of young prospects all don't have the backing of promoters, and they rely solely to make money and to essentially to put their earnings in the pot by selling tickets. So it's a case of that they either need to get on one of these bigger promoted cards, which is going to be difficult because there's going to be a lot of fighters keen to get out there. And if you're restricted to 5 fights, what you're going to have, you're probably going to have a 4, 6, 8, 10 and a 12. It's going to have to be all British. So your British journeymen now are going to be hot property and they can be charging what they want. Probably going to see a lot of British titles, eliminators.
Good point that actually. Just you mentioned that there. Sorry, mate, to dive in, but they're talking about like Fury and Joshua already talking about talks to fight in the UK. I heard Bob Arum talking to Christina Poncher as well. He's talking about what they could maybe be looking at. But again, it's you need to be using fighters from America. Josh Taylor's talking, for example. He says, "Look, I'm trying to stay in shape and all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to need at least 7 weeks sparring. Exactly. Minimum,
The thing. So the update that was put out, it basically said, as a professional boxer, what can I do? Usual things. Can I still train? Yes. Exercise can be done at home. Can I spar or go to the gym? No. So, I mean, look, it's all right keeping fit, going riding a bike, running, hitting a bag, things like that. All things you can do at home. But you need to spar to go into, essentially to get ready to fight. And you can't do that until all these things are lifted. So, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do to ensure that fighters are going to be ready. Because surely they can't license fighters who say, I've not sparred for 8 weeks. We're not talking, like a last-minute short notice opponent here. These shows are going to be lined up. So I think what they're going to be hoping is they somehow get some sort of leeway or lifted restriction from where it allows fighters at least from where they can go to the gym again. And they can do some sparring, and then they can plan for shows later down the line. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Like I said, for small hole boxing, I just don't see it as a feasible thing. I don't think some fighters may not want to. They might not want the risk if they've got a job or they've got sponsors, things like that. They might want to wait. But as I say, for small hole boxing, it's going to be a struggle. But for your bigger promoters who are under pressure to fill dates, I think they'll look to explore every avenue possible, but it is going to be all British shows, as I say, topped by British title fights. I mean, the one thing it does do, it gives some potential extra publicity and exposure to your area level fights, your English title fights. Some of the best fights I've seen have been at that level, and it's because they're evenly matched. The one that always springs to mind for me is Boy Jones Jr. against bloody hell, Craig Poxton.
Poxton, yeah.
Poxton. Brilliant fight. It was on Box Nation. Quality fight. Unreal. And it was for a Southern area title, that. But I tell you what, it was evenly matched and it produced the goods. So if we see more things like that, great. Still not sure what it means, for like no fans. I mean, I heard some talk that they're going to put cardboard cutouts in seats and things like that. It's just
doesn't Frank do that anyway?
Well, what's the point? Literally, what's the point? Just if you're going to do it, it doesn't really matter. I mean, one of the shows that I think we'll first see back is probably going to be Terry Harper against Natasha Jonas. It's one that can be done relatively on the cheap. As I say, if you're going to do that'll be a 12-rounder, then they'll do 10 or a 12. Then you'll get another one on. Then some of the essentially your prospects coming through, because that's all you can do. But nothing's been agreed yet. It's all right putting out these statements, but at the end of the day, there's been no movement. I understand you've got to plan for the future, because when you can hit the ground, when you get the go ahead, you want to hit the ground running. But for me, I still think we're a long way away, and there's more to it than just let's do it. As I say, fighter availability. A lot of the journeymen do it, like part time. They're not all full time pros. Are they going to be ready? It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, certainly will be. No word on our first guest as yet. Going to keep giving him or her a try and hopefully get them on. We have 2 guests lined up tonight. Number 1, not answering the phone at the moment. We'll try throughout the evening for you. Everybody in the chat seems to be enjoying themselves. What about you lads? Jim McDonald's there as well. Mr. Controversy, Trading Leather, Boxing, Steve Brown. Who else have we got there? Yeah, we'll talk about Fowler and O'Hara Davis in a minute. Just before we do, Andy, we'll just go back in time briefly. James Windsor has thrown in a question for you over on patreon.com/Boxing Asylum. How successful, Andy, could Salvador Sanchez have been in boxing? I know this is something we've talked about before, done punches from the past and all that, but how successful could Salvador Sanchez have been? His title reign was already superb before his death, and you feel he could have moved to super featherweight and lightweight soon after to potentially fight the likes of Chavez and Arguello. Don't disagree with any of that, Andy. I think he would have been superb and was as well up to the point of his death.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this before actually as well. If he had lived in that, I mean, there was obviously talk about the Gomez, Wilfredo Gomez rematch. I think he was in talks to have a rematch with Juan Laporte after the Nelson fight for some. Just off the top of my head, but yeah, he's right. I mean, going up in weight actually, featherweight, super featherweight, and I don't know if lightweight would be. I mean, it's a tad too much for him. But that was the golden era of good featherweights. I mean, you had Rafael Limon, Canelo Boze Edwards, Bobby Chacon, Barry McGuigan would be later. I would think. I think it was he was mid-80s. I think Sanchez would be up by that point. Chavez would be coming into his first world title was what was it, mid-80s, 86,
Wilfredo
87.
Gomez, Andy, would Gomez have been hanging around at that point or?
Yeah, I mean, Gomez kept going because I remember him fighting Zuma Nelson, and that was a fabulous knockout by Nelson. But he kept going to at least the late 80s. I'm sure. Ended up fighting Rocky Lockridge, beat him in a close fight. I'm trying to think as well. He beat Lupe Pintor. That's another fight that potentially could have happened for Sanchez. Zuma Nelson could have a rematch with him at some point. Considering what he's going to achieve, having numerous fights he's had with Jeff Fennick and Jesse James Leha, Gennaro Hernandez. They'll fight De La Hoya as well. Pernell Whitaker. I mean, Christ, he fought the who's, man. The featherweights, super featherweight, lightweights, light welterweights. I mean, there's without doubt. I mean, considering he wasn't your all classic Mexican fighter, he was a technician, but as well as he was a fantastic athlete. If he had you hurt, he would try and take you out and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you think of those names: Chavez, Arguello, Lamon, Laporte rematch, Gomez rematch, Chavez, fucking Navarrete, the one for the Philippines. Yep, it's not saying he would beat them all, but even if he won some and lost some of them and stuff like that, at 23 at that time, what he had achieved up to his death was Hall of Fame potential. Beating those guys who were all great champions in their own right, especially Arguello, who'd never lost a world title. As champion, never lost his title in the ring. Something like 14-0 as champion through 3 weights. But yeah, he could have been one of the greats of all times. I say that respectfully, by the way. I mean, without doubt, he could have easily been one of the greats of all times. Beating guys like Little Red Lopez, Castillo, Laporte, Gomez when he was like a heavy underdog, Cowdell, making adjustments against the likes Pat Ford. Great fighter, absolutely great fighter, and without doubt one of my most favourite of all times. But as I say, it's a what if my granny had bollocks to be my grandfather,
He's only 23. He's only 23.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
23. And another thing as well is apparently he wasn't going to fight for much longer. I think he was only going to fight for another year, and he wanted to go and become a doctor or something like that. I'm sure I'm right in saying that. He wanted to become a doctor, but so he might, even if he lived, he might have never seen the best of him in that, But what we saw, I'm sorry, it's just one of the finest fighters you'll ever see.
And shout out, Andy, to someone you mentioned there along the way who fought Sanchez 2 fights before his untimely death, Pat Cowdell. He was only 19-2 when he fought Sanchez, and Sanchez was, he was only 23, but he was in and around his peak as we knew him, and Cowdell pushed him to a split decision over 15 rounds. I used to know an old boy who knew Pat Cowdell. I think after his retirement, he opened up a furniture removal business or something, which is completely irrelevant, but Cowdell was a good solid fighter, and to push Sanchez to a split, like I said, 2 fights before his death, showed what a good fight Pat Cowdell was as well.
Yeah, he was a good amateur back in the day. I'm sure it was Olympic silver or bronze or something. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I don't know if it was the back end of his career and stuff, but he got knocked too early. It was like first round. I think it was a bit of a shock actually. I'm just going to pull up his record just now. Give me a second here. It was a first round stoppage. Zuma Nelson, that's who it was actually. That was a bit of a shocker actually. Yeah. It was Zuma was champion at that time. Right, okay. Yeah, so basically he got twatted about the ring and stuff, and I don't know if he fought for long after that, but yeah, he was a very good fighter back in his time. But I just think he's for what his talent had, he was just a wee bit. I don't know if it was just as he got older. I don't know if it was the Nelson fight alone, but he got stopped, like say, in a few fights after that as well. So maybe that was just his one night of glory that he stepped up and gave Sanchez fits and stuff, but certainly never reached those heights again anyway.
No, it certainly didn't, unfortunately. Aussie moving closer to home, down a couple of levels, it's fair to say. Bit of beef between O'Hara Davis. Eddie's pulled him from back underneath the bus to get this beef fight with Anthony Fowler. They're quite far in weights. Davis is a big old unit. The lesser of two evils for me would be O'Hara, and I'd say it'd be too big, too strong, and too heavy punching for Fowler. Would you say you'd prefer O'Hara to win, lesser of two evils?
Oh, I would rather see Davis win. I don't think he would. I think Fowler's a big guy for 154, and I don't see what's Davis at 140. It's not a fight that should be sanctioned, in my opinion. Fowler was banging on about how he'd get in the ring and he'd be about over 160, pushing 170. then I'm sorry, you should not be going in with somebody who weighs in 140 pounds the day before. Talk about danger and stuff, and this bullshit beef, this Twitter rubbish and things like that. It's a typical Sky and Matchroom thing to spin a story because there's nothing else happening. Nobody wants to see this fight whatsoever. What about the Scott Fitzgerald fight? That was happening, that was the talk of the town a couple of months ago, but unreal. Like, why is this even happening? It's boring. Like I said, it's not interesting. It's the usual thing, like, O'Hara Davis said this about the newspaper and stuff like that, and it was completely blown out of proportion. Anthony Fowler, probably one of the most disliked boxers in the sport at the moment, just can't do anything right, and even when he tries to be funny, he does that wrong. Just a bizarre turn of events. They're making mini press conferences out of it now, which says it all. I don't know what else to say, to be honest. It's not a fight I want to see. It wouldn't shock me if it does happen now at some sort of catch weight at like 150 or something like that, 151. But yeah, there's no point to it whatsoever. Does it shock me in this day and age? No, but hopefully we don't see it.
Well, you never know. Eddie might try and put it on for us. Let's move on then, Andy, shall we, to another question. Bit of a light-hearted one here from friend of the pod, Joe Kennedy. He's always good for a question or two. He says, what are the best and worst boxing nicknames? I know we've gone through a few in the past, and I always bring up my old mate Gerald Nobles, the Jedi Warrior, with his little dangly tits. Famous heavyweight from the 2000s you might have forgotten about. Joe throws in a couple here, Andy. One from way back in the past, George the Orchid Man Carpentier. And also, my favourite, El Gallo Negro, Gerald Washington, the Black Cock. Any that you want to throw in that come off the top of the head there, Andy? Best or worst boxing nicknames?
Well, Butterbean's obviously one of them. Got to be. Well, what about Anthony Small? Sugar Ray Clay Jones Jr.
Classic. Well, he lived up to it, to be fair, didn't he? I mean, he was right up on those guys' levels.
Yeah. The best ones, I mean, see some of the best names are obviously for the bygone era, and it's when like the media was like kind of racist and stuff because Sam Langford obviously was like the Boston Tar Baby.
That's great. Yeah.
It's because he was black, but fucking hell, man, what a fighter! The Mongoose, probably one of the best ones I can think of off the top of my head. Archie Moore, Manos de Piedra, naturally. Hitman Tommy Hearns, the original Hitman.
Ricky Hatton as well, the next Hitman.
Yeah. Trying some worse ones actually.
Well, I've got one for you, Andy. What about former Roy Jones Jr. victim Tony Thornton, the punching postman?
Punching postman, fuck's sake. What was the one that Danny Jacobs originally had before he had the Miracle Man one? Was it the Golden Child or something?
The Golden Child, because he signed with Oscar, didn't he? And Oscar was the Golden Boy, and like Jacobs, they were marketing him to be the next in line, the Golden Child. Yeah.
Yeah. Fast Eddie Chambers. Fucking hell. Fucking hell.
Well.
What about Rapping Rob Kelly? That's a good nickname, isn't it?
I have a good one. Do you remember Steve Jamoy?
Yeah.
Been over there a couple of times, got knocked out. So his nickname is Younger Brother of Stefan.
Straight into the point.
Yeah, factually correct. We've got the Black Mamba.
Yes, I love that one.
Yeah,
I love that one.
1 second.
I've got an interesting fact about a black mamba. You boys probably know this already. The black mamba snake is naturally black. It's actually like a silvery grey colour. It's the tongue that's black, isn't it? The inside of the mouth.
Well, Rob will like this one, but every Irish fighter seems to be called like Irish, like for example, Irish Mickey Ward or Irish Andy Lee. Or Irish Pat Lauer or something like that, If they've got a wee bit ancestry in there, they're always Irish, It's Irish Rob Kelly.
You gotta get to the money. They should have done that with Canelo, man. They should have called him Irish Canelo Alvarez.
Irish Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah, exactly. They dropped the ball there for certain.
Yeah. We've got obviously Dillian White's called the Body Snatcher. Don't think I've ever seen him knock anybody out to the body yet. off the top of my head. I want you to guess this one. I'll be impressed if you can get
That's
this.
a lazy one, by the way. Do you know what? I don't like fellas reusing nicknames because that's Mike McCallum's nickname, and that fucker shouldn't have Mike McCallum's nickname.
There's one I can't stand: the baby-faced assassin.
Marco Antonio
Pereira, and then James Tennyson was the baby-faced assassin as well. After
Shannon Court called it.
And who was the baby-faced assassin in history? Jimmy McLaren.
Yeah.
Jimmy McLaren was the baby-faced assassin, and then there's been a lot of hitmen as well that are undeserved of the fucking hitman title. Not my man Haney that was on last week. We give him the benefit of the doubt, but there's too many hitmen that can't hit.
Merciless Ray Mercer. It's a great one.
That was brilliant.
Owen What the Heck Beck.
Yeah.
Mark Too Sharp Johnson. Loved that one.
All right. Go on, Oz.
El Phoenix Assassino.
Assassino?
Popular heavyweight boxer.
Oh, it's not Saul, is it?
Oh, I was just going to say that. You got here before me. Aye. Here, Steve.
Saul El Phoenix Assassino.
I take it that's Spanish assassin, or
not a clue.
I thought you might have put up your man Michael Nunn.
Oh yeah, second to none.
Yeah, second
well,
to none.
MB put one in the chat that I was going to say, actually. Just beat me to it, MB. The Hispanic causing panic, Juan Lascano. I was just about to say that one, yeah.
The Hispanic causing panic. Fuck me.
Did you know that Juan Lascano was down to fight Floyd Mayweather at one point? It was around the time Floyd was fighting guys like Henry Bruseles, Victoriano Souza, when he had the hand trouble. And Lascano turned the fight down. I think he was going to get like $1 million payday. He says, no, when I fight with Floyd, I want to be like ready and have a few wins. We can make it a big title fight in a stadium or whatever. I think Juan probably should have just taken that fight.
Anything with sugar in it should be retired now as well.
Yeah.
After A later, no more sugar. Sugar Boy Malinga. Was it Sugar Steve Robinson as well? Was he a sugar?
Yeah, that's right.
And sugar Shane Mosley, who's sugarless Shane Mosley these days.
What about the Cannon Shannon Briggs?
O'Neill give him hell, Bell.
Oh, he was a great fighter. Love Bell. Talking of sugars, what about former super middleweight contender Henry Sugar Poo Buchanan?
Jermaine Bad Intentions Taylor. Oh, his post-fight career certainly.
Well, he is now, yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was right.
What you call it right off as well? Yeah. Well, Deontay Wilder's is a write-off. The bronze bomber. We already had the brown bomber. Like that's like saying Robert Hands of Granite Kelly. It's just a cheap rip-off. Like,
it's because Wilder came with bronze. He won the bronze, didn't he? In 2008, was it? I think.
Oh, hey, Roman Maidenhill Karmazin.
That's right.
They're like all my
exes. Fuck. Oh, Ronaldo, Mr. Snipes.
Ronaldo Snipes. Let's have a look in the chat. The boys got a few here. The Real Deal. Dr. Steele, Hammer Andy. Sugar Ray Clay Jones Jr. Yeah, we got that one. The Introverted Wanker, says Jason Chucker. I don't know if that's his one or not. The Real Gong Kid, says MB.
Our listeners' nickname. The Mongoose. Old Archie.
I said that. Yeah. I said that one.
The Eastern Assassin, Larry Holmes, Kaiser Cobra. Yeah, that's a good one.
What about Chop Chop? DeMarcus.
Oh, DeMarcus. Yeah. Shot.
Cinderella Man,
classic. El Gallo Negro, the Black Cock, is still my favourite. Gerald Washington.
El Inca.
Right, let's move on then, shall we, boys? A few good ones thrown in there. Yeah, the Hebrew Hammer, Dan W. We had Mark Too Sharp Johnson. The Weatherfield Warrior, says Jim McDonald. We'll end on that one. Rapping Rob Kelly, how are you tonight, by the way? Feeling good? Feeling strong?
Well, I'm a bit disappointed that you didn't give all my nicknames like the Count of Monte Cristo, the King of King, the rapper. He's going to reel in the field, rapping Rob Kelly. I'm okay. I'm indoors for the moment. I'm going to venture outside fairly shortly. I'm on the Budweiser tonight, guys, just keeping it commercial. Like Michael Buffer, brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers.
No Corona, no, Rob. Brought to you by Corona.
Yeah, I drank that. I used to drink that when I was over in Cancun, right spot. But that'd take up a whole podcast by itself. So,
I know.
What was the fight? Did we get to the Groves Froch fight yet? No, we're doing that later.
We haven't got there yet, Rob. We've gone over a few things. The nicknames, as you mentioned there. We're also talking about the great career of Felix Sturm, who's been sentenced to 3 years in prison. So I don't know if you want to go balls deep for 45 minutes on old Felix. Favourite moments?
Fucking hell, man. Felix Sturm, like, what happened to him that he ended up in such a bad spot? Like, he seemed to have like a pretty good career for a guy who wasn't an A-class fighter by my estimation by any stretch. Could certainly operate at world level, but was never going to be like a kind of a global superstar or whatever. Got a more than one questionable decision in his favor. You would have thought that he'd had enough money in the bank that he didn't have to go down there. What was it? What was the kind of probably beat Oscar, by the way, and didn't get his moment. That's probably his highlight of his career. But what's the main factor in his downfall? Is it does he owe money, or is it substance abuse?
That's the thing. That's the thing, because he was his own promoter. He didn't have a big entourage. You know, if you look at some of his fights and that, and you know, if you see the people with him and stuff, he was. How can I put it? He was self-promoted. Everything that he made, it went to him. You know, he fucked off to Bosnia as well to try and hide for the situation, and then he had to come back at some point. But
because he is Bosnian by birth, he was Adnan Katic in the amateurs, wasn't he?
You know what I think it is, Rob? I think it's the drugs. The main thing is the drugs, because that has become a criminal conviction. He got done for EBH for that drug offence.
Right, okay.
For the stanazole, the tax evasion. I mean, you could pay the fine and pay it back over a certain period, I would imagine, and maybe do a year probation, maybe. But this judge is, you know, people are surprised.
In Germany, if you get caught open, are they basically taking it as like a criminal offence? Well, fair fucks to the Germans for
exactly.
You got to give them credit for that. Like, that's strange, man. Yeah, no, like a good, decent enough operator. He probably got like he was. The guys mentioned he's Bosnian originally. Germany was kind of a home for exiled fighters. There wasn't it throughout the 2010s, like
that's right. Marco Hawk, Zoltar, Dai, Karol
Abraham,
Vladimir Burchis. There's a lot of shit, wasn't there?
There was, but it just goes to show the boxing country that they were able to take exiles and make them superstars and have that as their home base. Like, and some of those arenas were fucking jam packed. Like, for Germany, definitely had some big boxing nights in over the years there for sure. So interesting, really, really interesting. But probably should have lost to Macklin, should have lost to Martin Murray. I would have thought. Maybe you give him the rub of the green because he should have beaten Oscar. If he's popped for the steroids and they're making an example of him, it has to happen to somebody. It's a pity it probably doesn't happen to more fighters across the board, or there's not kind of a universal legislation in place where that can happen more often. But I don't want to see anyone go to jail, man. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, and I hope he definitely gave some good performances over the years. So I hope he straightens out the financial issues and gets back on track. But if anything, it's making for an interesting autobiography. It's putting an extra couple of chapters there so he can cash out on that hopefully at some stage. But I wouldn't like to see him in a bad spot. I always thought he was a half decent fighter for sure.
Yeah, he was a talented fighter, could turn southpaw as well. One of the things that Rob said there, which struck me as well, surely that guy must have made a load of money over the years. All those big nights in Germany in front of the lights, fighting guys like Macklin and then going over to fight De La Hoya. Yeah. He must have made some serious paydays, Andy. I mean, what the hell has he been spending it on?
Well, that's the other thing as well, mate. When you're popular in Germany, you also drag in the TV numbers. And all the money over there in Germany at the time was non-pay-per-view. And the money he got, I mean, even the Klitschko's were earning fucking millions. And so was he. So was Abraham. So was Huck. You know, these were big name fighters. And obviously, it's kind of die of death. You had Marcus Baer back in the day. You had, what's his fucking name? Rocchigiani, the two Rocchigiani fighters. I think they were, German as well. They were making, sold out arenas. They were like, it wasn't like you see, like guys coming in for like Britain and that having a big bevy and that. They were having like areas and that where it was like champagne, there was like fucking caviar there at ringside, and that proper like go-to events. You've seen some of the cameras ringside, it was all like, dollies and guys, Dickie Bows and suits and stuff, like proper fucking night suits and stuff, but I obviously sold out. Again, as I say, I just think he's made it, he's took bad advice, putting his money through Switzerland, right? And then he's got fucking done for the drug. I think the main thing of this is the drugs. The fact is that they've took this as a criminal matter and just went straight to it. I just think that's made all the difference here. And I can see if other countries would follow suit, it might make a big difference, actually, and make a big example of some of these athletes. Because that's the biggest name I can think of, sports-wise, who's been jailed, not just for fucking tax, but also to have the doping and be basically put down as an ABH, actual bodily harm. Because, basically, the judges basically said that Chudinov hasn't given his consent, that fucking Sturm isn't allowed to dope to fight him. So, yeah, it should be a game changer, in my opinion, but is it going to be? Obviously not.
Yep, rest in peace, Felix Sturm. Hopefully you're okay. Moving on then, Aussie, Daniel Adams has thrown in a question for us. He said, what are the panel's most memorable, spectacular gas jobs? I've just watched David Hay versus Carl Thompson, and it reminded me of how on top Hay was in the first round and suffered no damage, and then the tank just emptied. One that struck to me, Aussie, was indeed David Price, obviously. He's had a few gas jobs, especially against Tony Thompson.
Yeah. I hate these questions because they catch you off guard because you can't think about him immediately. I forgot about Big Pricey. I wouldn't have said him in terms of coming to mind straight away. Bring Andy in as well because he might have some that come to mind straight away, and I'll have a think that where there's a fighter on top and then he just gets...
Well, Big Frank had a couple of gas jobs, like at the first few rounds against Lennox Lewis. He was doing really well off the jab, and then the tank just completely emptied. Or what about fighters overall who just had bad gas tanks? I was thinking of old...
It's tough to say that, it's quite rare you'd see, say, for a 12-round fight, you'd see a fighter dominate for, say, 8 rounds and then tire. I mean, you could say Billy Joe, pre-thingy against Eubank, dominated for 6, and then the tank emptied big time, and Eubank took over in that fight. I mean, it didn't cost him, but it was an example from where, his fatigue levels rapidly deteriorated. I'm trying to think of any others, or horrendous gas tanks. Let me have a think. Andy, do you have any as well?
From you, Andy. Declan Geraghty's gas tank was never the best, I don't think.
So what was the question, mate? I was responding to somebody in the chat there, Chuckwood, about he was asking if Rocky Gianni was actually German. He is. So what was the question?
It was just the worst gas jobs in a fight, or fighters who had bad gas tanks. So David Hay gassing out completely against Carl Thompson was given. Here's one, Andy. This is another one I was going to mention, actually.
Lewis against Klitschko?
Yeah, that's a good one. Lee the Alcoholic Froch has mentioned it. Mike Jones against Jesus Soto Carras. I often tell that story. When he emptied the tank, he tried to knock him out, and he was absolutely bollocks for the next 11 rounds.
First round, he just got. Well, what about Fredo Angulo against James Kirtland in Mexico? Did the exact same thing. Angulo tried to fucking smash him out after dropping him, and he just punches himself out, and then he just gets iced.
Tony
Harrison.
Jermaine Taylor.
Jermaine Taylor.
Cost him against Froch.
But there is other fighters or fights, especially like ones that go under the radar and that, but it's just off the top of my head. Gas jobs.
Tough question though.
Bruno against McCall, even though he won the fight, he was fucking toiling for the last 3-4 rounds of that fight. I can remember. Ben against Watson, what about that fight? He gassed. He fucking gassed. Eubank was prone to gassing, by the way, but he always kind of seemed to find ways of signing fights and stuff. Because he used to strap. See, I was thinking about Eubank. There was a story about him. Was it Jim Rosenthal? He was at the weigh-in. He was so fucking dehydrated. Eubank was, right. He turned to Jim. I'm not going to try and do the list, right? But he turned to Jim Rosenthal and says, Jim, my eyeballs are so dry. Can you imagine actually trying to close your eyelids and your eyeballs are that fucking dry because you're so dehydrated?
That's crazy.
Fucking mental, man.
Do you remember that guy, Andy, who fought Ricky Burns and he swung for the hills for about 8 or 9 rounds? Was it Gonzalez or something? Then he
quit.
Ran out.
That was a great night. Gas jobs. Trying to get some American ones.
Yeah, Kaiser Kobe says Mike McCallum there, but McCallum battered Watson to the body like he did everybody. I mean, yeah.
Povetkin against Huck. I remember Povetkin against Huck, actually. He toiled badly, and that was probably Huck's last great effort before he started to hit the slide, because he came up for heavyweight, up the cruiserweight to heavyweight for that fight, and I thought he might have just shaded it, but he fucking. I thought Povetkin he was fat, he was slow. This is like pre-roids Povetkin. I was going to say, Dillian White's shown moments where he's been gassed out.
I was going to say,
Chisora.
I was going to say in the Whack fight, White showed he tired, and then he showed it in the Parker fight, Chisora fights as well.
Bellew against Usyk, he gassed out before he got knocked out.
You think Kovalev tired?
Aye, without doubt. He's Ward. Steve? Who was the one we did the one recently? Actually, punches for the past. We're discussing it. Who the fuck?
Gooden in the chat. Kudryashov. Definitely.
Exactly. If you couldn't punch him out within 5-6 rounds, he was going to get knocked out himself. It's a good shout.
There's one thing is a lot of them that they're just a lot of them are like big punches, and it's the reliance on looking to iron them out, and if they don't, it's plan B then, and they're looking right. What we do. But anyway, we'll ring Wellings back in.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ozzy. Delighted to welcome our second guest of the evening on. We have Sam O'Mason. How are you, Sam?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Very well, thank you. Regarding the situation.
Yeah, have you been coping with the lockdown overall?
Yeah, good. I've as best as I can be, getting the shops in and whatnot, making sure there's always food in and whatever. Then regarding training, I've got my own treadmill and weights and pads and bags and whatnot. So I've been doing my own little circuits and just using my imagination to put together what I can to get best out of my training.
Yeah, I've seen you on Twitter and that doing a bit of treadmill in the back garden. You've been trying to mix things up a little bit.
Best I can. Like a bit of treadmill and jump off and do like a weight circuit with weights or whatever. Shadow boxing, just stuff like that. Just using my imagination to put together what I can. Like I'm back in gym, but obviously I'm stuck on my back garden.
Yeah, just before the lockdown, then were you full time or are you still doing the scaffolding?
No, I'm doing something pretty different now. I was in the scaffolding game, and I got some sponsorships, and then I was full time with the boxing. And then since then, I've gone into helping out children and young adults that have either come out of prison or they struggle with like ADHD and stuff like that, and they can't get on in normal schools. So it's kind of and people in social care and stuff like that, and like educating them and taking them out and basically giving them like an happier side of life when they've got it crap.
Well, that's good to hear. So it's a fulfilling job, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, big time. It's draining. It's very draining. Like when they go missing, you've got to go and find them and whatnot. But it's very fulfilling when you can. Obviously, everyone's got born in normal life. It's like you've got your mum, your dad. You've got support and security around you, and you go to school, you leave your university or whatever, you go into a decent job and you live happy ever after. But a lot of these lads are the mum and dad's like heroin addicts, and they've been to social care and they've been out of prison and stuff like that. So they've started up. It's trying to get them back on the right path and get them turn into like better people. So I'm introducing boxing, doing that as well, and like training them, giving them like something else to focus on, to kind of steer them where they need to be.
Yeah, good stuff. Just going back into the gym briefly, you're trained by Ryan Rhodes. What's it like training under someone who's done so much in the game like Ryan?
Yeah, it's good. It's good to get pointers and whatnot. Yeah, it's very good.
What type of things does he teach you? Obviously, he was a good switch hitter back in the day. Little tricks and tips. Do you spar with him even?
Yeah, now and again you'll get him. We'll do some sparring. Yeah, he's still got the movements and whatnot. It's funny to see because you watch it back, obviously, when he were younger in his day with us. And then when you spar, he's still got them certain movements and whatnot when you spar, and you can pick up off and mimic. Yeah,
Ryan was a great fighter back in the day. So you had the English title then. You went down to London to defend the English title twice. Do you think that fighting away from home was a factor in either of the results? Because you got a draw, didn't you, and then lost the second one?
Yeah, big time. It's a big regret. Hindsight's a great thing, and we the situation was one. We had six or seven people pull out from me to fight for the English title, and then Kevin Hooper stepped up, and he'd moved in weight as well, and I won it against him. I won it against him, and then we had 6 or 7 people from then pull out. And then Kate Prosper wasn't in the position at the time to fight for the English, but because no one had taken me on, he were willing to do it, so they brought him on. Then I had the first fight with him, and he was saying that my jaw's not being tested, he's going to knock me out on X, Y, and Z. And I think he underestimated me because the first round he come out and I cracked him, and his legs went straight away, and I just him from round 1 to round 10. Even his sister said that I'd won the fight, but with it being down there, they scored it a draw. But then we made the big mistake going. They won the purse bid, and then we went back down there to defend the title. And then, my personal opinion, it probably could have been a draw. If it were up here in this town, they'd have probably given it me, but it could have been a draw. Bear in mind, I'm the champion going down to his neck at woods, defending it twice. And then they gave it him. You just think, and the scores were wide as well, and it's just boxing fury is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes,
and even as people were coming up saying, "Why have you come down to London for the second time to defend it?" You're asking for your belt to be took, basically.
I know, but then you're a fighting man as such. You got to take these type of risks and go where the fights are.
Yeah. It's instead of using my brain, it come to a bit just desperate, and I want to win that, and the next fight would have been for British and Commonwealth title against Philip Bowes. So it was just, I was too focused on the British and Commonwealth and just fight anywhere and do whatever I needed to do to get to that stage. But instead of thinking outside the box and thinking, no, we'll get it somewhere neutral, or he can come up here and I've been the champion, I've defended it once down there already. So he can come up this side and get some mutual agreement. It was just kind of no thinking and full steam ahead, which is a bit.
Yeah, just to remind our listeners, we've got Sam Mason on the call at Sam the Sensation over on social media. Any sponsors you want to give a shout out to, Sam?
No, not at the moment.
One of your fights, you fractured a hand. What happened there? Or maybe you even fractured 2 hands, did you?
Oh, when I fought, what was his name? I forgot his name. A Russian guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he come out in the first round. I hit him with a right left, and my hands just bust straight away. He had an head like concrete, and then but we're only doing 6 rounds, so the next 5 rounds, 5.5 rounds, I just had to use my feet and use my motion and get out of the way and just juggle it basically and do the best I could.
Do you think you'll be all the better for that experience? It's like getting a cut or something. If something happens in the future, you've dealt with it, you know how to react.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. My first title fight was at International British Masters against Andy Keats, and he bushed mine in the first round. So when your vision's going in that, you've got like a saggy eyelid and it's over your eye and you can't see what you're doing.
Yeah. It's
either you have a fold or you continue to fight and you pull it out of the bag, which I did. So when that happened, it was kind of, I already learned from the previous time before, and I just had to keep calm and use my head and do the best I could for that situation and that moment in time.
Obviously, there's word come out from the British board. They are trying to get fighters back again. I mean, they're talking about behind closed doors and that. What's your opinion on coming back and whether you should fight in front of people or not?
To be honest, I ain't got a foggy.
Yeah.
I'm just listening to what's been said each day, and personally, I think it's if it's not fully cleared up, it's a bit of a daft idea because it'll just end up coming back tenfold and being probably worse and whacking even more people. I think that there needs to be a big pause on everything, and just let everyone just crack on with their lives and be with their family more until it's completely gone, and then start getting back on their feet. Because obviously boxing comes and goes, but when a family member or something like that's gone for good. So I think we all need to be very, very cautious of what we're doing and not rushing back into what can always come, where obviously a loved one can't once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah, well said. I've seen you tweeting out about these things, actually. You're very thoughtful. Do you think that this whole situation is maybe a chance to reassess how we're all spending our time?
Yeah, definitely. I think regarding, as daft as it sounds, regarding Earth and everything, it's given it a chance to breathe, because even ozone layers closed up now. And I think it's just, like, it sounds daft, but you're like, the sun's, well, not lately, but sun's been out, birds are always tweeting away, and everyone seems a lot happy, and I think it's just made everybody really slow down and think about what's more important, just chasing money and chasing time and getting lost in the moment and doing everything they can, and just picking things up day to day by habit and not really living to the full potential regarding like being with the families and the loved ones and just enjoying the little things in life instead of constantly looking at what they ain't got and trying to chase what they think they need when they've got it already.
Yeah, well said, well said. Just finally on the boxing situation, if Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury get it on, who do you fancy and by what method of victory?
I'm going to pick definitely Tyson Fury to win. And it'll be a late stoppage or he'll win on points. But it won't surprise me if it was a late stoppage.
Maybe tire Joshua out or something.
Yeah, outbox him, tire him out, make him probably feel a bit silly. Because AJ reminds me of like a young Frank Bruno. And then Tyson Fury with his movement and how his ring craft and how good he is and his boxing IQ. I think he'll dance rings around him. And personally, I would be shocked if Joshua would have enough to take fight. But money talks, I don't know.
Money talks, absolutely. We'd love to see that one. I mentioned earlier on Twitter at Sam the Sensation. Any other social media presences there, Sam?
No, that's it. I've just got Twitter and Facebook. Lovely
jubbly. Hopefully everybody will go and give you a follow then. Stay safe out there. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday evening.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All the best now. Cheers.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Sam O'Mason there on episode 371. Good to hear from Sam there, Ozzy. No idea what's going to happen when we all come back. It's going to be tough for ticket sellers, isn't it, journeymen? Not saying he's a journeyman, but you know what I mean? People trying to put a bit of food on the table and that.
It's probably going to be an impossible task, because even your ticket sellers, you've got to remember the people you're selling to might be out of work or they're just getting back to work. And in reality, getting back to normal and getting your family life and your finances straight is more important than going buying a ticket to the boxing. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I think it's one from where the small hall scene needs some support and backing, because without that, I always say boxing would not be what it is. You remove the smaller levels where it develops fighters coming through and things like that, you're just going to lose a huge aspect of the sport itself. So I hope it's supported. I hope people get more opportunities. I hope, as I say, that people do stick around, because as I always say, you like to Carl Greaves, Steve Wood, Steve Goodwin, people like that. They do an excellent job developing young fighters, giving them the right tests, and then when they're ready to get them on the bigger stages, they let them go and reap the rewards after that.
Talking of old names and old faces, which we weren't, but let's do that right now. Donny Baseball appears to be on the call. We tried to get him on last week, couldn't hear him. Donny, are you there? Can we hear you?
I hope so.
Yes, Donny Baseball. How are you, sir? How are you?
Oh, fantastic. How are you, Steve?
He's done anal. He has done anal. How you doing, Councillor?
Yeah, Councillor Trella, Councillor Donald.
The Donald.
The Donald. Here.
No, I'm here, yeah.
As a constituent of yours, Donald, I've got a concern.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What concern?
What colour envelope do you want from me this month? White or manila?
He's muted himself.
Nothing. When you go. Welcome back. How's the wife?
Oh, she's wonderful.
She pregnant yet?
No, but I mean,
come on, get on the fucking job, Donny. Because I didn't knock back that invitation to your wedding just for you to tell me a year later, oh, I've not got her pregnant yet. Get on the fucking job. And I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll be godfather to the wee man, right? I'll come out of that. I'll come out of the christening. Guarantee I'll come out of that one.
I'll do my best for you when we get started. Thank you.
Right, Donnie, what have you been watching? You been watching the boxing? Any vintage stuff?
Yeah, we can watch it on
I've
Zoom.
done
Vintage stuff. Well, no, not really. I haven't been watching much of anything, to be honest with you, except porn. But that's about it.
I see the MB in the chat, Donnie says pray for Cindy, but Cindy's Dave the Hater Lowback's mom, so I think he's getting his wires crossed there.
Yeah, he's getting the Americans confused. We all look the same to him, I guess.
Hi, racist in the chat, racist. Stay with us, Donnie. I wish I had a better question for you, but I don't at the moment. But I'll hopefully try and get something for you very soon. So if you stick with us there, Don.
Do my best.
Good stuff. Rapping Rob Kelly's back with us as well. Question for you, Rob. Flying in as we speak from Matthew Reynolds. He says, what are Rapping Rob Kelly's views on Lloyd Honeyghan? Does his Don Curry win show the fighter he could have been? And is it maybe another case of wasted talent, Rob? Before my time, to be honest.
Well, Jesus Christ, Lloyd Honeyghan was a very good fighter. Mickey Duff was in his corner. He did the impossible by going away from home and beating Don Curry, if my memory serves me correctly. And by the way, Don Curry, I think, not only held one, he might have held 2 wins over Marlon Starling, which will tell you what kind of fighter Don Curry was. I think Honeyghan probably got him at the right time. There was a lot of rumors and whispers around at the time that Don Curry was perhaps riding the white horse or on the cocaína for the Spanish listeners.
Hey, sorry. When you go, I was just going to say, as I was watching Bruce last night, his brother fighting Tommy Hearns, and he actually shot his trainer in the pit in a mental institution.
See, so there could have been
there's
form
something
there.
Yeah, there's definitely something there, like.
But saying that, take nothing away from Lloyd Honeyghan, did it against a top tier fighter, and just goes to show you at the time when the welterweights were fighting everybody in that little triangle tournament, kind of Mark Breland had losses to Starling, had a loss to Starling and a draw to Starling. Starling had a loss, maybe 2 losses to Don Curry and a win over Honeyghan, and Mark Breland had a win over Honeyghan. So he was a very good fighter, the ragamuffin as they call him. Excellent fighter. Beat Johnny Bumphus as well. I think there was a bit of controversy on that. There was one fight, it might have been at Loftus Hall or at the Royal Albert Hall, where, and maybe the listeners can correct me on this, but Lloyd Honeyghan ran across the ring against Johnny Bumphus and didn't give him time to get up off the stool and fucking hit him in the. I remember my dad going absolutely apeshit watching it at the time. Over that, but take nothing away from Lloyd Honeyghan. He probably overachieved in his career, beating a fella like Don Curry, but a very good fighter, man. And the welterweights were red hot at the moment at that time when he was around, because Mark Breland, as I said a couple of weeks ago on the show, I think he had 91 amateur fights, lost 1, and destroyed the guy that beat him in 3 rounds as a pro, and only had a loss against Marlon Starling. Marlon Starling had something like 67 fights at that stage. Absolutely unbelievable welterweights, the two of them two. So to be hanging around with those two, already he lost to both of them. No shame in that. He had a definitive win over Don Curry. And I think when you look back at Lloyd Honeyghan's career, you can't do anything but give him props. Great fighter.
There you go. Rapping Rob Kelly has spoken on episode 371. Rob's with us, so is Ozzy, Andy, Donny Baseball as well, alongside me, Steve. Let's get back to you, Donny, then, shall we, with a question flying in from Holt. Are you ready for this, Donny? Question from Holt coming in, Don.
I'm in a bad service.
Yeah, you're in a bad spot at the moment, Don. Shall I come back to you? Yeah, I think we're losing him at the moment. I'll come back to you, Donny, in a second whenever you get yourself into a bit of a better spot. Let's go on to you then, Ozzy, from Kevin Chase. Question over on the Facebook page. He says, Oz, what round would you show your non-boxing fan mates or casuals to show them what this sport of boxing is all about? Then what round would you never show your mates? So Kevin's thrown in a couple here. It doesn't have to be a famous fight, for example. So maybe the 3rd round of Hagler versus Hearns is significant, or maybe Lewis versus Schmeling. But what round would you show your non-boxing friends to discuss what a great sport it is? He also went on to say Corrales for Castillo, round 10, which is obviously a no-brainer.
Yeah, that was the one I was going to say. Another one that I thought was a good one was probably, it's kind of a lap over into both, but the Joshua Klitschko round 5,
Yes.
Which then went into round 6, because obviously Klitschko was dropped early in round 5, but then ended the round well on top, and Joshua was gone, gassed, and then naturally dropped him in the 6th. But if you're showing somebody, who is just a casual on why they should watch, the Castillo Corrales round 10 is just... I just can't think of a better round. It was unreal, and it had everything. Rounds not to show them, anything involving Lawrence Okoli.
Yeah, he said that. Lawrence Okoli versus Matty Askin round 8.
No, not just that fight. Anything involving Lawrence Okoli, anything involving Dave Allen.
Henry Akin one day.
Yeah.
He's been in some terrible ones.
Audley Harrison, anything involving a lot of the stuff involving Audley. But yeah, it's a case of if you want somebody never to watch boxing again, let them watch Lawrence Okoli. And if you want to attract new potential new fighters, show rounds such as Corrales, Castillo round 10. And I think we'll have more people certainly tuning in than switching off.
I would imagine so. What about you, Andy? Maybe was it round 10 in the first Bo Holyfield fight?
Oh, you just stole it from me. Yeah, I was just going to say that. Whole Holyfield round 10, just absolute fucking carnage. Round 15, Ken Norton against Larry Holmes.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Fucking incredible. Round 7, Duran against Moore. Absolute fucking savage beatdown, by the way. And one of the knockdowns, whereas I've never seen it before or since, he actually chins the guy with a right hand and he gets knocked down, but he actually collapses right on, literally on the seat of his arse. The great rounds. Well, obviously you got round 9, Guy Ward.
Oh yeah. What was the one? Was it involving Cello Render, where him and
Paul Samuels? Double knockdown.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Aye. They had the rematch, did they know they too?
Can't remember.
I'm sure
that was the rematch.
Was that the rematch, right?
Yeah, Render got knocked out. I'm sure he got knocked out early first time round, and then that was the rematch. I'm sure.
Last round of Tony Giroff.
Yeah.
Emmanuel on the mic.
Hey, Steve. What about
Emmanuel and Mickey Ward? Gaddy round 9 is absolutely unbelievable, and Girov, it's fucking golden, man. That Emmanuel's commentary adds to that so much. Like when he gets invested in it, go back down to the body. Oh, fucking brilliant.
Steve, any round you want for George Foreman against Ron Lyle?
Ron Lyle, yeah.
And Ron Lyle,
round
any
4,
round?
Maybe.
Yeah, Ron Lyle.
Hey, what about John the Cicero against William Caveman Lee?
Yes.
At the end, the finishing round 5.
Round 5, because Caveman was a wee bit of problems. There was one that was just right at the tip of my head. I suppose if you want a round to kind of show your mates and stuff, but you could actually show your mates this round and it would question their stomach for the sport, because this is what the sport's all about. But grit, determination, you're blind on one eye, you're fighting the greatest fighter of all time, and it'll be round 14. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier in the third fight in the Thriller Manila, because even though Joe put a beating on him, but by that point he's blind legally in one eye, his eyes closed, and his good eyes closed, he can't fucking see a thing, and Ali's just teeing off on him, punching fucking straight shots open, and he's taking them and he's coming forward, and that's no a chin, and that's no anything else bar will and by heart that he's wanting to step in there, and he's wanting to come back out for the 15th round. He can't see shit, and after the fight, Ali's in his bed, and they come and drag him out his bed, help him get dressed to take him downstairs to the after party. Can you imagine it? And I think this is the greatest comment Ali's ever said. Actually, he says if he was ever called to a holy war, Joe Frazier would be the first person he would call up next to him.
Yeah. There was one came to my mind, but I can't remember the fighters involved. They hit each other at the same time. One of them goes down, but as the ref's counting him, you can clearly see the other guy is really badly hurt. He's like staggering back into the corner or something. I was watching it recently. I can't remember if it was me and you for punches from the past, but I mean, it's a waste of time because I can't remember who the fighters were, but definitely something like that happened.
We're watching too many fights these days.
I
That's what's
know,
wrong,
I
mate.
know.
And we can't remember what's happening.
Yeah.
Joshua Ruiz, in the where they both hit the deck in the first fight, would have been a good round to show someone relatively new. Obviously, Ruiz,
Tell you what you don't show.
Time he gets battered.
I put someone on to Rigondo just before he fought. Was it Francisco? Oh,
Drian Francisco. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck you have to ask me to watch? Like,
You should have said sorry. I meant the Agbeko fight.
oh, fucking hell, yeah, just as bad. Fuck's sake. Oh, stop.
Remember Mike Jones?
Yeah.
I think he was fighting Randall Bailey. Was it Randall Bailey? I think
Yeah,
it
he
was.
got knocked out by Bailey, didn't he?
It was the shittiest, most awful fucking shit tard of a fight you ever see. I think it was on the card of the fucking first Pacquiao-Floyd fight. Sorry, Pacquiao-Bradley fight. And that fight lasted for hours before the fucking fight happened. But it was the shittiest, awful fucking fight. And then Mike Jones reaches in with a lazy jab and Randall Bailey catches him with an uppercut and ices the fight. So it was the most... You could watch that fight, the first 10 rounds, you say, so I ain't watching boxing again. And then you see the most fucking delicious knockout in the next round. So you could say that one as well.
Quite a few thrown in. Let's see if we can get Donny Baseball in on the action. How you sounding now, Don? You there, Don?
Clear as day. Clearly.
Going well, isn't it, this? Good lad. We need to get the hater. Where's Gabe these days? What's happened to him?
I got a topical one, seeing as Andy was on last week, but Andy Lee versus John Jackson last round. That was a fucking... Because he was all at sea and just about out, wasn't he?
Yeah, that against Jackson. That's right. Right, I've got a question for Donny, but I'm gonna have to park it. I don't know what to do with him. Andy, got one for you coming in from Ted Barrett. It's a bit of a niche one, but we all like talking about bullshit like this. Ted, he says, before my time. So let's compare the eras of these titles. So where do these titles rank? So the IBO at present, the WBO in the early 2000s, or the WBO in the 1990s. I think what he's saying, Andy, is, you know, the way these are quite niche things, which is like sort of the shittiest and most irrelevant. Do you remember the IBO?
Yeah.
Well, the IBO at the moment, it's sort of gaining prominence. Some people call it the fifth title. I'm a big fan of the IBO myself. The WBU in the early 2000s, they were trying to pass it off as a world title whenever John Robinson was in charge, running it from his shed. And Ricky Hatton was supposed to be a world champion, even though he wasn't really with the WBO. And then the WBO in the 90s. So obviously he's going back to sort of in and around just before maybe the Michael Moore era. It was a bit of a shit belt, wasn't it, back then? Do you remember? The WBO was like the IBO is now, and they were ranking dead guys. And so I think he's just brief comment on those three titles, I think, whichever takes your fancy.
Well, I think we'll mention WBO because that's the most recent one. It came into effect, 1990, I think, around about late 80s.
88
anyway.
Maybe, was it 88 possibly?
I remember the first heavyweight champion was Francisco Damiani, right, and he fought the South African Johnny Duplu, right, and I think Damiani was an ex-Olympic champion, and you had Ray Mercer, Moore might have picked up a belt as well, and then you've got Tommy Morrison and stuff. So I mentioned it last week. It was last week or the week before. I think it depends on who the belt holder is at that time. Obviously, the WBC is the old. No, the WBA is the oldest. And the WBA and WBC came out the following year, and the IBF came out in early 80s or something like that. And Larry Holmes became, I'm sure, the IBF champ, was the first inaugural champion and stuff. But you obviously get the divisions coming in as well, who inaugural champions and stuff. See, at the end of the day, it's like everything else. I ain't a fucking fan of belts and stuff, but it goes back to the fucking day dot. There was always like an American champion, there was an Australian world champion, the British version of the world championship and all that sort of stuff. So there was always belts. There was the IBC belt going about and stuff. There was the IBU belt back in the day as well. End of the day is the belt holder to me made the belt. There's been some fucking shit over the years and that. You can imagine you got Liakovic, you have fucking who else you had?
I'm going to throw one in here, Andy, while you're thinking, actually. Do you remember Zolt Erdai? I know I mention him from quite time to time. He was the WBO light heavyweight champion, and I watched most of his fights. This is a sad bastard that I am. He had this reign of terror, he had a reign of terror in the 2000s, and some of the shit that they served up to Zolt Erdai in the name of a world title. They had this Australian called Paul Murdoch, and he looked like he just staggered in off a session. I mean, this guy shouldn't have been anywhere near. And then Erdai beat a guy called George Blades, who said before the fight how happy he was to be there. Danny Santiago. These were like top 30 guys in America, not even in the world. Like Friday Night Fights caliber. There should be nowhere near world titles.
I remember.
Tell you who has a lot. Two fighters who have gained a lot of credit for making the WBO what it was. British fighters Chris Eubank and Nazim Hamid.
Yep.
Because it was like Boxing Monthly. Like the belt kind of came around at the same time as the birth of Boxing Monthly as a magazine. And they used to slate the WBO belt until a couple of British lads won it. And then it was like the fucking greatest belt of all time. So Barry Hearn and Frank Warren did a great job for the WBO over the years. And those two fighters, Eubank and Nazim Hamid, absolutely made it a reputable title, I think, in my eyes.
See, the thing as well is, I mean, again, I'm going to harp back again about, the fighter made the belt. But you also need to remember as well, as a fighter who was a world champion of holding one of these belts, so we say, they actually, in their own right, maybe defined that belt, because I'll take like the minimum weight champion Leo Gamez. He was I think he was IBF minimum weight champion, and he done so much for the Venezuelan boxing. I think in Venezuela you actually had to retire at a certain age. Well, that law was scrapped for him because he was world champion at that point, and they wanted him to continue. So, maybe things like that suggest, again, goes back to what Rob was saying as well about Eubank, makes a belt. Well, he maybe made the WBA belt, but again, minimum weight's not nobody watches it, do they? But Gamez went up to like flyweight and won a belt as well. He was like champion for a number of years. I'm trying to think, like, say, WBO champions and stuff, especially. Well, okay, look at Cleverly, for example. FedEx the belt. I mean, we're really looking forward to the Jürgen Bremer fight. I think that would have been a great fight. Bremer pulls out, and then the shit that he fought was absolutely fucking deplorable. I'm trying to think. Steve Collins fought Eubank, and then he fought Ben twice. Ben, at that point, in my opinion, was shot.
Ben was another WBO fucking pursuer though as well.
Yeah,
160, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And he fought a washed Aram Bartley, and again, did the board actually even look at him as a champion? Because I'm trying to remember.
Think so, dude.
That's the
memory
thing.
Now it's going purely on memory, but I at the time, as I said, WBO wasn't considered a reputable world champion. It was just one of the three, and then the WBO. But like as I said, over time, it's become now it's the fourth title, like, isn't it? So maybe the IBO in time will become that, but for the moment, it's not there for me.
The other thing as well is you had I don't know if you remember the guy Rob Eamon Loughran.
Yeah, that's right.
He was WBO champ, I think, as well. But then you had a lot of Danish fighters winning belts and stuff. Who was the guy that Oscar beat? Johnny Bradell, I think it was.
Johnny Bradell, yeah.
They
used to smoke about 50 a day, didn't they?
Yeah, Dado Purzo. Cotto fighting Torres. Then he fought Kendall Holt, who had that great knockout.
I've got one here, Andy, for you. Enzo Maccarinelli's WBO reign at cruiserweight. Do you remember? He beat Bobby Gunn, and then on the Calzaghe Kessler undercard, he beat Mohamed Azoui, this Egyptian based in New Zealand. And I will give Maccarinelli credit, actually, for the way he dealt with Wayne Braithwaite. I think that was a good win because Braithwaite was a serious puncher who went on to upset Joan Pablo Hernandez. But also, while we're on the subject of Maccarinelli and fitting in with Ted's question, he was a WBU champion. Yeah. And Sky, I mean, talk about the shit, the absolute dog shit that they served up for Maccarinelli on Sky when he was WBU champion. I mean, it's absolutely criminal. I mean, they had this one guy bought in called Rich LaMontagne. I'm going to have to actually look this up on YouTube to see if he's as bad as I remember. This guy could not even stand up. He was like shot to shit walking into the ring. He looked like a fellow who was acting as a boxer in a movie. Rich LaMontagne. I'm going to have a look this up, man. But anyway, that was Macaronelli as the WBO champion, which is the Warren and Bob organisation. I said this the other week, didn't I? What is it? Arum has held the WBO featherweight title for the last 12 years or something ridiculous. So them two are right in bed with each other. But the WBU as well is a pile of shit too.
The other thing as well is you need to remember, if you look at the actual early champions, WBO, they were either for like Holland or the UK. You had some South Africans who were champions in that, as well as a couple of Mexicans, especially as you went down the weights and stuff. A couple of Puerto Ricans. But it was always a belt, the WBO, when it was actually regarded more as a European world title. And there wasn't much credence. And you see, this is the thing is, I was a big fan of HBO about, especially Jim Lampley, when they mentioned title holders. And they never mentioned the organisations by name. They just says that so-and-so owns this organisational belt, whilst X-Fighter owns this organisational belt. And usually would just take the piss out of the organisations, really. And it's just kind of like full haul now. But I suppose the real question should be is, out the main four, what is the most legit? I mean, you had the IBF with their own problems with corruption. You know, WBO's had ranking dead bodies. WBC have almost been bankrupt by Rocchigiani, and you've got the fucking Panamanians just creating belt after belt after belt like it's fucking John Lewis. You know, so
they're all as bad as each other. I don't think we've tried on the pod before. Yeah. You can't make a case for any of them. Nope. It's like saying the electric chair is better than frigging being stoned or something. They're all as bad as each other.
You know what though? In fairness to the WBO, they're probably the last of the bodies out there to go WBO Diamond, WBO Interim, WBO fucking Mayan, WBO Intergalactic Space Force belts. They're fairly reluctant to go down that road, as far as I can see. Maybe I could be wrong now, but
I think you might be wrong, Rob. They've got kind of European, haven't they, and all that stuff now.
Yeah,
but like a European, I can kind of understand it, because some fellas have to keep.
They're just ranking
in order to fight for European title.
Yeah,
you have to fight, because I remember being back with Andy at one of the fights, and someone came in from one of the ranking bodies, and they were like, "Okay, like you've had X amount of fights in Ireland, so that qualifies you for a European title, which will put you in a ranking spot for whatever belt." So I kind of understand that a little bit more than the kind of Diamond and Intergalactic and franchise and fucking all this. Like they're not as bad as the other two, I don't think, at the moment, but you know, they're all pretty fucking bad, aren't they? Like,
I was watching Dennis Andrews against Alex Blanchard earlier on there, right? And Alex Blanchard won one of the very early versions of the IBF European belts. So the WBO European, which kind of came into effect there a few years ago. And
they're just ranking belts. That's all they are.
But then, why though, mate? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a sanctioning fee for the belt, for the company. You pay money to me, I'll make sure you get a good... It's paying your way, and at the end of the day, it's fucking corruption. You win the fight, you win the belt, you get a position in the top 10, top 15
without those ranking belts, you don't need 4 organisations, because if the said organisation, say the IBF, ranks 1 to 15, then what is the disparity for then the WBO, WBC, and WBA to rank them anything else? Because if there's no ranking belts, it should be the same. It should be 1 to 15, your top 15 fighters. That is what makes up the ranking for all 4. But it doesn't work like that naturally, because we have these ranking belts, and where some will go a preferred route because they want to fight a preferred champion, etc., things like that. You see like 8-0, 9-0 fighters in the top 15 now, and they're the most false things ever. But then you look at mandatories as well and how people worm their way in. I mean, 2 of the worst we've seen in the past, 5 years, Bizier and Jojo Dan. Garbage. Absolute trash in terms of a mandatory.
See what pisses me
off
as well as that,
we have to kind of... Sorry, man, go ahead.
On you go.
No, as well as that, we have to take into consideration that fighters get rankings because they're paying sanctioning fees. Look at fucking Conor Benn, like he's flying up the fucking world welterweight rankings. Because he probably hasn't fought anybody that can fucking hang with anybody in the top 20 if you're being real. Like if you're taking sanction fees out of it and you're looking at it like a real welterweight top 20. He hasn't beaten anyone that can fucking hang there.
Well,
Yet he's
remember-
number 4 for a
Not hitting
fucking.
in the top 100.
Yeah,
Remember-
exactly, dude.
Remember, he'd been injured, and he went up 2 positions. He hadn't fought for over a fucking year.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But what-
So the ranking positions are bought and paid for in a lot of these organizations. Like,
Yeah, the one thing I would say though, and when we had Jason McClory on the pod a while ago, Frank Warren's matchmaker, and he touched on it, and he said the one thing it does, it says it makes fighters make weight. So as they're progressing, because as you see, you can agree to fight Joe Bloggs, and it can be at what, £160, for example. But then in reality, they'll weigh in at like, it's a middleweight contest, but they'll weigh in at like 163. And, there's no reason to make weight. But by putting one of these fringe ranking belts on the line, it then means that, look, they have a purpose to make weight for a start. Because if they don't, they can't compete for a belt. And then from there, they get a ranking and other bonus points and things like that. But he said that it gives fighters coming through ways to make weight and things like that. Now, I never thought of it like that, and I'm not condoning it whatsoever, but it's a fair point, because the amount of times that you see, you'll just see like a middleweight contest, against like a journeyman or something, and the weights are a joke. They're not even at middleweight sometimes, they're above middleweight or welterweight or something like that. So there is an aspect from there, from where it allows people to learn and develop to make a fighting weight. But they're all a joke in reality, because you go down the rankings, and then you could probably struggle to pick a top 15 out of all 4 rankings, which is fair, because they're flooded with rubbish, absolute trash. The WBO are bad for it, like these, well, with the WBO Africa belt. And you just get these random, like what was his face? Who did Dubois knock out? Ebenezer Tete. He was in the top 15. He was shocking, absolutely atrocious in terms of, technically a top 15 fighter. Rubbish. So the one bonus is it does allow people to make weight purposely, but we all know that they're a money-making scam, and you buy rankings. If you've got a promoter that's in with a certain, a certain organisation, i.e. WBA with Matchroom, Bob and Frank with the WBO, that 10, 12 and 0, you win an Intercontinental belt, you're straight in the top 15.
Well, that was what I was going to say. You've got all these WBO European, IBF European, and that. I've not seen it so far with the other 2. But back in the day, if you won the European title, it was pretty much guaranteed lock on. You were going to get a top 10 ranking
with the WBC, especially.
Yeah,
that's right. You did. Yeah.
What the fuck do we need these other belts for? If you've got a European belt there, keep it active. Keep a champion fighting, and Andy, just if you promise my top 10 ranking as champion, say 2 defenses gets you a top 4 ranking, top 5.
Oh yeah.
Defend it 3 times, you become mandatory. I think that's fucking fair, but nothing's fucking fair in boxing. You only get what you negotiate.
BJ Flores was a good one. Do you remember that? Whenever they shoehorned him into the top 15, he hadn't had a fight in about a year.
Fight for Bellew.
Yeah.
Fuck. Jesus fuck.
What was it? Flanagan fought one, that Mazonki Farner. Again, won some shitty, like WBO African belt, and then he becomes, it allows them to become a challenger. We can go on all night about shambolic, challenges for titles and things like that. And in reality, an overhaul needs to happen, or something needs to happen on the governing bodies from where they start to agree more, because the rankings are laughable. As we say, Ben was at a career high 6, hasn't fought a top 150, 100 welterweight. How is that even possible?
Yep, there you go, Ted. We've discussed some of the ranking bodies for you in depth. We've lost Donny, unfortunately. Andy's still here, Aussie, and rapping Rob Kelly, though. We'll be going on to Bellew of the Weeks very shortly. Before we do a couple more questions, and then we'll get on to our Cruiserweight tournament. We've got Froch Groves as well, so plenty to be getting through. Rapping Rob Kelly, question coming for you from Holt. He says, do you think Floyd ducked the De La Hoya rematch? Biggest pay-per-view in history, 2.4 million buys. And with the controversial result, the rematch would have been even bigger. Holt goes on, Rob. Oscar has a rematch clause. Floyd instead fights Hatton, retires for 2 years to avoid the rematch clause. He probably says he wasn't happy about the splits, which is fair enough and true. But I think, says Holt, Oscar gave him hell, nearly won, at least on the scorecards anyway. Oscar stopped using that jab or Floyd took it away.
I think Floyd took it away, dude. And if there was a second fight, he probably would have won a little clearer. I think if there's any, he's had 2 rematches, hasn't he? Maidana and Castillo. Castillo is the only one that you could say ran him close. Could have got the win. I think I had a 7-5 where you could make an argument for 6-6, but I think a lot of the time, at the time, Castillo was getting. No, Castillo had a great fight, but I think. Because it was closer and he was causing Floyd kind of problems that you hadn't seen him getting posed before. Maybe it's a kind of similar in the first. I remember at the first time, some people had arguments for Maidana winning the first fight. So you get people with all kinds of opinions, but definitely Floyd did some questionable things with the retirements and all mid-career. You know what I mean? Hugely suspect when you look back at it. There's quite big question marks over Floyd that don't get asked as much, apart from Thomas Hauser. We do kind of, the narrative, the public narrative is that he's one of the greatest of the modern era, and he is, but there's massive question marks over Floyd with doping as well as Manny. So he definitely had questionable instances where he retired and stuff. Whether it's a duck of Oscar, I don't know. I think he would have beaten Oscar more clearly the second time. And Oscar was on the slide as well. Let's not forget that. You look at his performances after Floyd. I think you have to fucking favour Floyd heavily in a rematch with Oscar. But certainly for cash generating opponents, you couldn't have looked at anyone bigger than Oscar Floyd too. But Floyd capitalized off his popularity that he gained from beating Oscar and decided to become the main man and be the number one guy in the driving seat. Maybe he figured he didn't need, and he obviously didn't need De La Hoya too in retrospect. Hard to say he ducked him. To be honest with you, I don't think I don't think he ducked anyone, Floyd, but he was just clever in how he match made post De La Hoya. But I can't really say he ducked anyone, to be honest with you. Maybe Margarito. Margarito is probably the only one you could say he genuinely could make a case for that he ducked, because he fought Baldomir or something instead of Margarito, because
they said Paul Williams at one point, didn't they? But it was never really close to being made, was it?
There was no, as far as I know, there was no offers or no real huge clamour.
I don't think so, Rob. I don't think so.
For Paul Williams, I think R.A. the Rugged Man raised the Paul Williams fight point on his interview where he was slating Floyd for cherry picking or whatever, and Floyd phoned in. And R.A. stuck it to him. It's a famous interview. You should go check it out if you haven't seen it. But R.A. was the one who brought Paul Williams' name into the mix, saying Paul Williams would come down from 54 to 47 to fight you now. What are you fighting fucking Joe Schmo for? And why didn't you fight Margarito instead of Baldomir? And Floyd famously said he got 12 million for fighting Baldomir. And R.A. was like, I don't believe that shit. That's bullshit. He didn't get 12 million from Baldomir. Probably on the back end pay-per-view numbers, he probably did. But that was an amazing interview, because Floyd's as much money as he has. Why would you R.A. the Rugged Man on that podcast? For anyone who doesn't know, R.A. the Rugged Man is an incredible underground rapper with an in-depth knowledge of boxing. Him and Vinny Paz probably in the underground rap scene, massive boxing fans, and they always make it known that that's their kind of hobby outside the sport. But Floyd phoned in to a satellite radio show to confront R.A. the Rugged Man on his opinions. It's literally one step away from him just dropping onto the call tonight to say, hold on, Rapping Rob Kelly, are you trying to say that I took fucking Antonio Margarito? You know what I mean? His ego is so fragile that he couldn't just sit back and be counting his money. He had to phone into a Sirius FM satellite radio show in the States to confront R.A. the Rugged Man, and it definitely made for listening gold. So you should go check that out if you haven't heard it recently. Really good.
Yeah, that's definitely worth a listen. I know Vinny Paz throws in quite a few boxing references in his lyrics. The Asylum are being accused of trash talking here, apparently, so I've only got one thing to say to that. Who cares? That's a message to all the trash talkers out there, all the haters. Let's get on with our cruiserweight tournament then, shall we? A few weeks ago, we did a heavyweight tournament. We went through a few fighters. The guys give their opinions over 2 minutes. Dan W reminded me tonight, let's get back on the cruiserweight scene. So Ozzy, Andy and Rob are here. 8 fighters all thrown together. You've got 2 minutes to come up with a winner, and then we'll get through to the final, hopefully. You remember the format from a few weeks ago. So first fight, we shall go to you with this one then, Andy. Are you ready then? First cruiserweight. I've put them all out, all 4 of the fights. So the first one to you, quarterfinal number 1 then for the cruiserweights. We have Dwight Mohammed Kawi versus Marco Huck. 2 minutes,
Ooh.
Dwight Mohammed Kawi versus Marco Huck.
Big fan of both fighters. Watched most of Huck's fights, as he was coming up cruiserweight champ. He's reign of terror. But I've got to say with Kawi, the mini version of Joe Frazier, fantastic at light heavyweight, fantastic at cruiserweight. Even had a wee jaunt up, I'm sure, but maybe up to heavyweight, I think.
Fought George Foreman, didn't they? Which seems ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I was thinking more along the lines of fighting Spinks, Leon Spinks. I remember he'd take the piss out of him that night as well. Fought Holyfield to, obviously, that great. It's one of the Holyfield first fight is one of the last great fights to go 15 rounds. If you want to throw in the likes of Levander Johnson's fight, I forget who it was he was fighting at the minute, but I think Kawi would roll underneath and just basically bang away at the taller, longer Huck, who basically would try and time the last 90 seconds around and just trip into action and just beat shit out of people. But, Kawi, he had more about him. Huck's coming from a kickboxing background, very, very wild, whereas Kawi, he could box, he could move, but he could fucking brawl, he could dig in the left hook, he could roll underneath. So I'm going to go Kawi. I'm going to say Kawi by... How many rounds we going here? 12, 15 rounds?
12, I think.
12 rounds. I'm going to say Kawi on points.
Kawi on points then. Let's give it a Marco Huck. I agree with your assessment, by the way. He did try to steal it in the last 90 seconds, and Kawi would not have let you steal anything in the last 90 seconds. The guy was he called himself the Buzzsaw, didn't he? Was it Camden Buzzsaw, I think he was called?
Camden Buzzsaw, aye. Camden Buzzsaw. Done time in jail. This is the other thing as well, is what I'm a big fan of, actually. These guys went into jail back in the day, 70s and stuff, and they took out the boxing programme. They come back out like Bernard Hopkins, and they become pro fighters. And I think it needs to be introduced in prisons nowadays. And I'll go one further and say is it needs to be introduced into schools to get some of these kids to get the fucking aggression and energy out of them a wee bit, actually. So you should go back to doing that.
I co-sign that because there's a few lads I know behind the wall that could definitely do with that discipline because they're doing poor life of crime, maybe. You know what I mean? Get them in a ring or they're fucking going to haunt the taxpayer forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They used to do that. Maybe it's time. Something we should revisit. Right, quarterfinal number 2 then. Rapping Rob Kelly. This is one for you. Yeah, a couple of the names might be a little bit obscure. Well, one of the names in this quarterfinal number 2 definitely isn't obscure because it's Alexander Usyk. How would he get on against a former Evander Holyfield opponent and a world champion in his own right, Carlos De Leon? So we've got Alexander Usyk against Carlos De Leon.
Well, I'll be the first to admit, as much as a hardcore I am and as far back as my fucking boxing lifespan goes as a 42-year-old, the cruiserweights has never been my division until I came on this podcast. And it was mostly Patterson there that gave me the inkling to go check out the cruiserweights because to me, it was never a glamour division. You know, my favorite fighters growing up were like Duran, Leonard, Hearns, Hagler, going back Robinson, Tyson. So like I always paid attention to like from the lightweights up and then kind of skipped and light heavyweight and skipped over cruiserweight because at the time all the fucking the glamour division was always heavyweight. I mean, Tyson was the fucking man when I started watching boxing. He was the man, and I know we've said it over the last couple of months. You're looking at him now, his popularity now. You can't compare him to any modern fighter. The hype around Mike Tyson, it was just unbelievable, and pre the internet as well. So like that was where my attention was. So historically, I haven't paid attention to the cruiserweights as much. So to preface that, I'm going to give it to Usyk, just on technical ability. But what I've seen of his opponent is very little, and from memory, I can't even remember a fight that he's been in. So I'm just giving that to Usyk off of current form and technical ability. I'm going to say he finds a way. What I'd say about current fighters fighting former fighters, if you look back, me and Andy are old firm fans, right? So if you watch some of the old firm matches from the 60s or the 70s, they look like fucking bad kickabouts in the park, compared to where the game is now. I don't think that translates for boxing. I think that, Andy mentioned 15-round fighters. You have to take that into consideration again against fellas who can, you got to give, I always say if you do these fantasy matchups, you have to give the old fighters the benefit of all today's nutrition and all today's training, and then match their natural ability and their ability to go 15 grueling 3-minute rounds. Again, as far as the game has come since then in terms of technique, you always have to give that fucking extra bit of spirit and extra bit of guts and pure fucking brutality to lads who could go 15 rounds. It's an incredible feat, and a lot of them weren't the same after having those 15-round fights. So you got to give those kind of benefits to old fighters when you're doing fantasy matchups, I think. But if you really want to get nerdy about it, but I'm going to give it to Usyk just on technical ability to get through that one.
No problem. Usyk goes through alongside Dwight Mohammed Karwi then. I'll go to quarterfinal 4 for Aussie. So Andy, you can have quarterfinal 3. I've changed my mind on one of these guys. It's not Tony Bellew, who is number 1 in our quarterfinal number 3 against Juan Carlos Gomez, Andy. Tony Bellew against Juan Carlos Gomez. I'm just going to preface this quickly by saying I always thought Gomez was a good fighter back in the day, but I've been revisiting his career lately, and he had 12 defenses, pretty much against nobody. So maybe the Bomber would have a chance.
This is the thing. I've spoke to you about Gomez before, actually, and it's one of the fighters that I cannot recall much about. I mean, obviously, I remember the Kudryashov knockout. He got fucking ice off a left hook.
Yeah. He was done by then, wasn't he?
He fought a Dingling man as well.
He schooled Sinan Samuel Sam up at heavyweight, but he had a run at cruiser of about 10 or 11 defences of the WBC title. And I remember him being a good fighter, big puncher. But like I said, I looked back before I did this, and he really didn't fight any names of any note.
Well, I remember Vitaly got a hold of him, smashed him up. He beat McCall as well, didn't he? And Dennis Baktov and Adolfson Rodriguez. But these guys have been over the course many times. How was his chin? I'm trying to remember. What was his chin like? I mean, obviously, if
cruiser sound, but I mean, against the likes of Vitaly, he went 9 or 10 rounds, did he? So I mean, you got to, he must have had a pretty decent chin to go that long with Sam as well. So I'd say it was okay.
Yeah, but he got done for doping as well, didn't he? There's no issues with drugs and that as well, with cocaine and steroids, and he converted to Islam at one point as well. No, that's a fucking issue. But I'm just saying, it seems like there was a lot of strife in the background. I mean, it wasn't. I'm not talking about Muslim. He joined the militant black Muslims or something like that. No, Nation of Islam or stuff. But I think it was about militant side.
Do you think Tony could have taken advantage of this?
Tony would want him stoned to death, probably.
You know how Tony feels about that movement. Could be his motivation.
To be honest, I can't remember much about Gomez's career, and the last abiding memory is Kudryashov icing him. I'm going to say Bellew. I'm going to say Bellew knocks him out.
Will you just leave him alone, Andy? What are you bringing him into the semi-final for? When you were just left alone?
Gomez knocks him out. Fuck it.
Who are you going for then?
I'll go Bellew.
Bellew.
Keep it Tony in it. We'll never forget.
We'll never forget. Good old Tony. Just put him up on the chat there. Just leave him alone.
Here's one before you go further. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah.
Marciano probably could have campaigned that cruiserweight. You know what I mean? There's fellas who've been hit and overtaken cruiserweights
180 is
when
world heavyweight champion.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the heavyweight champions, Ingo Mario Hansen, Floyd Patterson, these guys probably could have been cruiserweights. Anyway, sorry to it means nothing in this fucking tournament, but you know what I mean?
You're right.
What was Rocky Marciano, 13 stone or something?
Yeah, he was probably going down to frigging light heavy or something. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay, final one then. Aussie is to you. Former Tony Bellew victim going in against a guy who fought Carlos De Leon and also fought Dwight Mohammed Karwi. So we are going for quarterfinal number 4 between David Haye and Evander Holyfield. Prime for prime, David Haye, Evander Holyfield.
Holyfield.
You've set that one up, Steve, eh?
Oh, you never know. Why do you think Holyfield would be a favourite over the mighty Haye? I mean, Haye, against Carl Thompson, he come back after that.
Because he wasn't banging Rita Ora. Holyfield. Either was David Haye, by the way. I don't know where I'm getting that out of. Sorry, Oz, continue.
No, not at all. Look, you don't become, boxing's first undisputed cruiserweight champion by accident for a start. Hay was good, explosive, quick, moved extremely well, could bang as well, but ultimately had his flaws. Holyfield, big fan of him, extensive amateur record. I think Lennox Lewis came out, I think it was just about a month ago, and said it was his toughest opponent. Not his toughest fight, but his toughest opponent. I just think I think he's just a too well-rounded, schooled fighter to beat essentially for David Hay. I don't think it'd be a complete walkover and, and a complete mismatch. I just think Holyfield is the better boxer, better fighter. And I think he'd ultimately come through the fight. Not with relative ease, but I think he'd be relatively unscathed in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think early on, first 4 or 5 rounds, probably Hay. The Hay that fought Mormek would have been dangerous with his right hand and speed, but Holyfield would have took over and ground him down as the fight progressed. Right, let's go into the quarterfinals then. The semi-finals. Second semi-final doesn't look too appealing, but the first one, wrapping Rob Kelly, does. Dwight Mohammed Karwi against Alexander Usyk. Let's see if we're going to have the final that we all expect. Karwi Usyk.
Tough one. The way Cowie could go to the trenches, you give him a shot in any fight. Then again, if you take it 15 rounds, Alexander, proficient amateur, has he done the long distance enough to hang with Cowie over 15 rounds? I would say you could give that to Cowie on a 15-round decision. But Usyk, to me, so far has shown so little chinks in the armor. I mean, apart from the fact that maybe he's a slow starter, but by the 6th round, man, he's firing. And I think it was Bradis gave him some trouble, but I think he would find a way to win. So I'm going to go maybe controversially with Usyk on this one.
No, that's good, because you could have set up potentially a Holyfield versus Karwi final there, which would have been a bit of a lame duck, Rob, considering we actually saw the fight.
Yeah, there was a slight anticlimax.
Rob keeping us on tenterhooks there. Well, you never know. Aussie, second semi-final. I mean, we've got the bomber. Never write him off against Evander Holyfield. Holyfield got past Hay, as far as you're concerned, but you never know. Bellew against Holyfield. What are you going for?
Come on, Oz. The pressure.
He got past David Hay, and he steamrolls past Tony Bellew quite comfortably. Look, I know Bellew won a world title up at cruiserweight, and then look, his defences after that were embarrassing, to be honest. Win over Masternak was decent, a solid European level, but in reality, he has no business being in this tournament whatsoever. There's far better cruiserweights going around. And I think Holyfield would have smashed him to pieces, to be honest. Let's say, look, he's no mug belly. He can box. His boxing ability is actually underrated. His fundamentals are quite good. But I think he'd get knocked out. We've seen him before, when he's against the bigger punch. I think he'd get knocked out. I'm talking Usyk style knocked out as well, where Edwards rushing to his aid, propping up his head, that sort of thing. So yeah. It's pretty much a walkover, this. I think it'd be quite early as well.
Absolutely. We have the final that we all expected then, Andy.
If he got beat, did the SAS just parachute into the ring like the fan man?
I like the fan man. Get stuck in the ropes and all the scousers batter him.
The SAS coming in with the fucking paragliders fucking shooting people and that, amazing.
That's the thing that always gets me about that. The poor old fan man, Rob, got an absolute beating once them boyos started caving his head in.
Yeah, he was just want to fucking have some fun, and fellas were like, "You're interrupting the rematch, you fucking selfish bastard! You see round 10 in the first one, you fucking prick it out of here."
Oh, classic times, yeah. But Holyfield versus Bo 2. Right, talking to Holyfield then, Andy. Holyfield against Usyk in the final. We've talked about this in the past. Gonna have to put you on this one. The boys can chime in as well, but go ahead, you start.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, Usyk's one of my guy. Holyfield's fucking legendary, isn't he? I mean, he made the cruiserweight division. Even back then, when he made it his own, it was the division that was respected. Still, even afterwards, it's always been a division that's a hardcore division. And over the course of the last 20 years, probably, we've had some fantastic fights. I'm going to go with Holyfield. And purely because I've never seen Usyk get dragged into the trenches as such as to where Holyfield's been to. You know, take the Calwee fight, for example. After that fight, it was so warm. This is Atlanta, Georgia, by the way, but it's like fucking tropical weather. Height of summer, July time. And Holyfield goes to the shower after the fight and he collapses. He has lost 16 pounds in residue, muscle residue, 16 pounds in weight through dehydration. He thought he was pissing blood because of the kidney punches, but it was actual muscle residue that he was pissing out. After the IV, he'd left the hospital something like 195 pounds at that time. I think Holyfield would just have wore him down in the end. And what we've seen with Holyfield as well as a heavyweight is just, you know, the real deal, the warrior.
Unbelievable. You'd have to give it to him. I don't prime for prime, you'd have to give it to him. I mean,
you've got to.
You're talking about a guy.
There's one thing I don't think Usyk likes, and it's the attack to the body. He doesn't like it to the body.
You got to give it to Holyfield in terms of timing, and you have to say that I mean, bigger guys couldn't fucking knock him out or hurt him. And when he was even shot and past it, the WBA had to have an investigation into him fighting that big fucking giant that Hay beat for the title, because he clearly beat the fuck out of him when he was like fucking 50 years of age.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? He just had it. The only one that kind of exposed him was Tony. But Tony was Tony, you know what I mean? He could counterpunch him. Could Usyk do that to the same degree that he actually outboxes him? And you're talking about Holyfield's timing. Look at him against Tyson. Tyson 1-2, move the head, bang. And even against Lennox, he closes distance. So you'd have to imagine that he'd be able to close distance on Usyk and stopping him doing what he does. Like, so yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, I'd have to say Holyfield, the greatest cruiserweight of all.
Yeah, I would say Holyfield as well, but it'd be a tight fight. No controversy, Rob, says Arlene Burley. Usyk top of the tree, forgot the romance of Evander. Bradis dragged Usyk into his fight early, says MB. Maybe Holyfield could do and expose that as well. Sam Shepherd says Bradis won 5 rounds against Usyk. Yeah, I think the boys are in agreement there. There's our cruiserweight winner then. Evander Holyfield joins the heavyweight winner, which was Larry Holmes. Surprisingly enough, we'll go on to the light heavyweights naturally next week or the week after. Before we go on to Belly of the Weeks then, boys, let's close it out. Last week we talked about a fight that we're going to talk about. I know there's a bit of raging going on, Andy. We'll get to you first, shall we? The first fight between George Groves and Carl Froch. One of the things that struck me was, I couldn't believe it was in 2013, man. 7 years ago. Where the hell's the time going?
Yeah, daughter was born that same year. Fucking incredible. I remember getting home for the rematch. Actually, we spent all day at a barbecue, beautiful sunshine, getting absolute rat-arsed, and then I said to the wife, we need to go. Why? Fucking boxing starting soon. So I had to go home and that. Yeah, but the first fight, one of the things I always remember about this fight was the pre-fight press conference, and George Groves told Carl Froch, here's what I'm going to do to you. And Froch is like, yeah, fuck off. I'm an international superstar, by the way. This is my trainer, Robert McCracken, MBE. I think, I want to believe there's an element of Froch took this fight lightly, because he'd been through the Super Series. He'd been hurt numerous times in the Super Series as well. And coming into the George Groves, which was a mandatory defence, I think, for the IBF title. I think Groves had fought himself into the contention for it. So part of me thinks that he took it lightly. And when the fight started, actually, I'm like, fucking hell, he's on the back foot, and Groves is pinging the jab and stuff, and then he steps. He must have known that he was losing that first round. And Froch being Froch, he isn't known to be fighting on the back foot, especially against like a non-scripted novice, so to speak, against like George Groves. So what does he do? He steps forward, and then Groves pings that straight right hand, and Froch is fucking sparkled. I don't care what anybody says. He was sparked out as he was going down, and the second he hit the fucking deck, he woke up. And he gets up, and I'm like, bastards. And I've got to say about the scorecards as well. The scorecards that fight were disgraceful. I thought Groves was pissing the fight easily out of the park. I mean, 76-75 is just disgraceful. I think it was twice actually as well. But you could see Groves, basically wearing down as Froch is working the body, while Groves is trying to work the head and stuff. Maybe it's just experience at the end of the day that told in the end. I suppose Eddie Hearn, and what I'm saying here is factual, because Coogan was on the podcast not long after this fucking fight, after the rematch, sorry, and he stated that Eddie got fucking lucky with the rematch because the stoppage was fucking bullshit, right? And it's one of the moments I have not. There's only twice in my life I can recall waking up in the morning being angry at a result. One of them was Alexander against Katelnik, believe it or not. But this one was one of them. I woke up on a Sunday morning, fucking looking at the ceiling like, I can't believe this has happened. Went back downstairs, watched the fight. Still can't see or justify why that fight should have been stopped. So fast forward many years later, I'm sitting ringside for Josh Taylor against O'Hara Davis, and in between the undercard fights, I see the very man himself, Howard. What's his name? Howard Foster. So I goes over, introduces myself, sits next to him, chatting about the undercard and fights and stuff, and then I hit him with the question. I says, Howard, tell me about the stoppage with Groves against Froch. He says, what did you see that caused you to stop that fight? Tell me. He says, mate, his eyes. He says, when that right hand landed, his eyes were rolling over his head. I says, by that point, I knew he was done. I says, well, why not just let him get knocked out or just let him take another shot? He says, look, he was done. In my opinion, he was done, and I stopped the fight. It's my decision at the end of the day, and I am the sole arbitrator. That was his justification. And that is at the end of the day, is he is the man in the middle. And I say to you guys as well, he has got a better vantage point. And if he says that Groves' eyes went, and you could see Groves kind of falling into him as well at the same time, who am I to judge? You know, I can still be angry at it and stuff like that. And I've asked the man himself. He says he was gone. But at the same time, Froch knew he took the fight lightly because of it. As I said to you beforehand as well, is there was an interview with Coogan after the fight, directly after the fight, and Froch is standing in the doorway, the changing room, and Coogan says to him, "That was the best fight I've ever seen live." And Froch's eyes are like fucking saucers, man. He's like, "Really? Is that the best fight I've ever seen live?" Concussed to fuck. Yeah. And as Ozzy would probably mentioned as well, as when he got knocked, he can't even remember getting knocked down in the fucking fight. That tells you the fucking the artillery that fucking Groves was hitting him with, right hands and jabs. He was getting outboxed, outmaneuvered, and somehow he dug it out. Fair play to him, but it still rankles me because I wanted him to get beat. Froch, I wanted to see him get beat, and for 7 rounds of that fight, he was getting tooled. He was really getting tooled. And as I say, with that stoppage, whilst it was controversial to us and to people who watched it, it was what made Eddie Hearn. He got so fucking lucky with that fight that he got Wembley Stadium, 80,000 people, and he rode it all the way. And Coogan was on, as I say, he was on the podcast, and he says they got really fucking lucky with that stoppage, and Eddie's never looked back ever since then. But yeah, it's one of the fights that always fucking, the aftermath of it's just incredible, because I can't remember if I backed Groves in the first fight, but I was backing him in the second fight, and the second fight was a fucking absolute letdown. Tactical, back foot, KG fight. I don't think Groves really trusted his stamina in that rematch, actually, to be honest with you.
He was right not to.
Yeah, I know. I suppose, because Froch, and again, especially in the first fight, Froch's reputation as a hard man, because you need to remember he'd been hurt badly against Kessler twice in both fights. Dropped against Taylor, Ward schooled him and hurt him. He backed him up with one hand. He looked like a demolition man against Booty, but yeah, it's just one of the fights that just honest to God. But yeah, no, fair. No, I've got to get to Froch. I mean, he badly hurt. He's fucking swatting flies the whole fight. and he pulls it out the bag. And I've got. Listen, I asked him, what more can I do as a fan than ask the guy who was in the middle, why did you stop the fight? And I wasn't to be a dick to the guy. I asked him straight up, and I questioned him back, and he says, "Look, listen, here's my opinion. Here's what I saw. I didn't see that, but he saw it, and he's like fucking 3 feet away." So
that's the thing. I think
that's the thing.
I think you're dead right. Like, in retrospect, I think we were all raging at the time because of Froch's persona. Like, I mean, I would never take anything away from Carl Froch as a fighter. You're looking at a guy that is fucking granite. Jean Pascal wins. Jermaine Taylor wins. All right, you can say Darrell fucking schooled him and he didn't get it. He might have got a lucky one there. Andre Ward beat the shit out of him, and Kessler beat him, but wins the rematch against Kessler, blows Butte away. He's granite. Like, he is absolute granite. But I always thought fellas with good fundamentals would give him trouble because of his lack of him being able to get. He had a good jab, but his lack of being able to get on a jab and use it as a tool and use it as a defensive maneuver. I thought he would get exposed against the likes of B-Hop or one of them, where they would just fucking stick the jab in his fucking nut all night. And I thought Groves was going to do something similar to Ward against him, but obviously he's nowhere near Andre Ward. But I remember my mate Andy's talking about the backdrop to it. I remember I was just got with a woman and we were moved into Enniscorthy, and one of my mates, Boo Hoare, he won 4 junior All Irelands, and he's a boxing coach for the CBS. And he rang me to go to the local. I was like, no, and he's a big gambler, like loves a flutter, like. So he was like, I'm after backing fucking Froch for the knockout. And I was like, I don't know, man. I think Groves is going to get to him. Like, he just stopped Glenn Johnson, although Glenn Johnson wasn't Glenn Johnson, but he still stopping Glenn Johnson was a statement for me that he could actually punch. Like, and I thought a guy with better technical ability proved me wrong against Chunky earlier in his career, where I thought he'd lose, and backed the Gale all the way and exposed him. So I had confidence in him. But looking back on it, he either did the weight wrong or he did the rounds wrong, in that he expended way too much energy in the middle rounds where he could have been cruising, because it was the 4th round by the time Carl Froch came to, by the way. He fucking didn't know where he was. That was such a heavy knockdown. And the fact that he psychologically, what was unfolding in the fight was Groves had been in his head throughout the whole build-up, Rubik's Cube in it, fucking, just playing with him, nearly making him cry on Sky TV. Absolutely massive fight, making himself a bigger superstar in the build-up, totally living in Froch's head, and then he goes out and fulfills the prophecy of dropping him with a right hand in the first round. Froch must have been thinking, what the fuck, man, like, I can't come back from this. But you got to give him massive credit for coming back into the fight. And I think Groves was instrumental in his own downfall, in that he gassed a little bit, and definitely the signs were there, dude. I mean, looking back even a day or two after, for me, I was looking at it, I was thinking, man, he's being honest with myself, he's gone. Like, he's gone. Froch had hit him with a fucking rocket of a right hand. It shook him to his core. As Andy said, he leans over. His eyes are all over the gaff. I don't know. Like, I think it was controversial at the time. You maybe think because he had put in such a good performance up to then, you give him the benefit to get stopped. But like, the referees said, like, fuck me. Like, you don't want to. We've seen so much even in the last year. Like, the refs are fucking, when they should have stopped fights, and look what happened. Like, and even in cases where they stopped it on time, look what happened. So Groves, I think he was probably lucky in that there was so much controversy about it. It allowed him to get that big payday for the next fight, and Eddie as well. And it's like fucking, they created a monster. Nobody wants to see Coogan no more. They want Eddie, he's chopped liver. But I would say fucking in retrospect, I think it was probably a fair stoppage.
Ozzy, quick word from you. The boys have already said it in the chat, but it's fair to say that I think Froch treated Groves with disdain, like he didn't belong in the same ring as him. He was looking down on him almost.
Correct. Yeah, it was a typical you're a mandatory, you don't deserve to be there type of thing. And Froch simply thought he was better than him. He had no respect for Groves, he felt he was better in every aspect, he couldn't do anything. And how the tides turned at the end of round 1. Froch was gone at the end of that round, and I stay 30 seconds longer and he would have been out of there, because his legs were gone. If you watch it back and the way he gets up, he stumbles back into those ropes. Those ropes keep him up. His eyes roll and things. I mean, Howard Foster talked about Groves, his eyes rolling. On the replay, Froch's eyes go, you can't fucking see his eyeballs because they're on the fucking top of his head. He's completely gone. And Rob's right. I think it was round 4. And I had Groves pissing it, absolutely pissing it. And the cards are forgotten because it was, for me, I still think it was a bad stoppage despite hearing what Foster said. naturally he has a duty of care and things like that. But I just watched it back again, and I feel like it could have gone on that fraction longer. Groves was certainly buzzed, but prior to that, I think Froch's reputation got him through a lot. Round 6, I think Froch took probably 8 and 9 huge power punches in a row. No defence, nothing whatsoever, and there was no luck whatsoever from Foster or anything. It was a case of carry on, go for it. Probably I said it before off the pod, probably one of Groves' best performances in his career, and he got beat because he surprised a hell of a lot of people who wrote him off and agreed with Froch that he had no business being in there. Certainly a victim of his own downfall in terms of a bit young, and I think it was round 6 from where he dominated, absolutely dominated, and he just got a bit cocky. He dropped his gloves, didn't he, just to try and bring Froch on, just to see if he could time him with that right hand again, and got caught towards the end. I think he had round 7 off pretty much, and obviously round 8 was when it was stopped. But no, it's one of them. It's a fight that will a hell of a lot. I remember being in a boozer that night watching it with all sorts of people, and it fucked me off because I backed Groves that night and had 20 quid on him. Got a good price as well. And when he got dropped in the first Froch, I thought, fucking hell, quid's in. But it's one of them. You've got to credit Froch to an extent from where he came back. He battled through. I still feel in terms of he was favoured with a favourable stoppage. 10 seconds later, he may well have gone and knocked him out, but we'll never know. And without that dodgy stoppage, as we've said, we would never have seen the rematch. And it probably was the making of Matchroom, really. As Andy said, 80,000 at Wembley, things like that, huge storyline. No fake beef. It was all issue. It was all what's it called? It was all fair. It was all true.
Little push and pull around on the cobbles.
Yeah. Look, it was all true. And Groves.
And the rematch was mandated, by the way, so he had to take it. Remember, Frost didn't want to take the rematch.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and Groves turned down an offer just because he wanted to be. He wanted Froch to have basically no say. So he rejected an offer, and I think came out purse-wise with a fraction less money. But he wanted it, so it was a mandatory and not a voluntary, because he knew Froch wasn't keen on the rematch.
I see Shep in the chat saying, if roles are reversed, the fight would have been stopped, or wouldn't have been stopped, whatever it was. The thing is, Froch was known to be tough. I think it's always good reputation. Gat, he was given a lot of fucking platitude. Fucking Matthew Sad Muhammad, Ali, they're all given, Frazier, they're all given great latitude because they were known to take the punishment. And Ray Mancini, they're all known to take the punishment. They're always known to come back. Johnny Tapp is another one. It's just, again, the reputation the fighter precedes him, basically.
Point. It's a fair point, because what reputation did George Groves had?
None.
His biggest shot before that was off Kenny Anderson.
Well, that's it. The thing is, but Kenny Anderson, I think Groves had fought De Gale and Paul Smith, and then he fought some maybe 2 or 3 fringe bum fighters and stuff. Then he got the title fight against Froch. So to me, again, listening to Froch, I can remember it as well as and obviously with Groves going in, I still maintain that he took him lightly. Froch took him lightly, and then you've got. How I justify that is by saying is what Groves told him, what I'm going to do to you, and Froch is like, no, you're not. This is my trainer, Robert McCracken, MBE. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm an international superstar. I'm like, he's just, and then he goes out, jabs him, puts him in the back foot, right hands him. Right, okay, Froch, he's done exactly what he just says to you. He's just done it. What are you going to do about it? He does nothing. He backs off. He's like, I'm losing the round here. Fuck it, I better step in. He tries. He steps forward. Groves takes a step back. Right hand down the pike. Boom.
Great
he's like,
shot.
Fucking
Beautiful
hell.
shot.
And
Beautiful shot.
I maintain, by the way, it's okay. It's still a domestic fight, and Froch had options after the Groves rematch. Did Groves take out the best of him or the last of him in the first fight? because he was, as I say, he concussed.
If he did, I even as much as a prick as Froch is, like, and he is a fucking muppet. Like, we could have a Froch of the week for every belly of the week, really. The Ryanair flight being the epitome of him, but like, his career is fucking unbelievable, man. I mean, like I think there's a reason Kazagi, and like looking back at Kazagi, why would he want to fight Karl Froch? Like, a no win situation for him. Like, if he beats him, so what? Who's Karl Froch at that point? And if he loses, Karl Froch is taking away his undefeated record. So I wouldn't have fucking, he was looking for big paydays. I don't begrudge him not giving Froch the opportunity, but. Froch was fucking probably one of the best British super middleweights. Is he the best Britich super middleweight of all time? Like, he's fucking.
He's number three.
Like,
he's number 3.
He's up there. He's definitely up there.
But number 3 behind who?
I'd say his resume stands up against
Kazagi and Ben.
I'd say Kazagi may be ahead of him, but Ben. I think his resume. I think Froch's resume.
McClellan beats everything.
Yeah.
McClellan beats everything.
So.
I don't give a fuck about he was brain damaged.
No, McClellan would
going into that fight. Ben
knocked Karl Froch out.
Ben was getting crucified and liquefied in the same fucking round, by the way. So didn't give me. I'm saying Ben McClellan beats fucking everything.
Yeah, no, yeah. You know what? I'd almost forgotten the McClellan fight when I said that. Probably, yeah, but he's up there. Like I said, he's in the argument. I don't think he'd any fucking. If he'd have retired after Froch won, you might have, or after Groves won, rather, you wouldn't have even begrudged him. Like, he had a fucking incredible career for a fucking guy who's an absolute knob. He was, granted, as a fighter, like, overcoming the odds times against, like, Jermaine Taylor and that guy, he's never given up. Like, he's always coming. Like, and even so, he's so far behind in the Groves fight. He's coming for you. Like, he's coming still. The only one that was able to fucking completely diffuse him was Andre Ward, and Andre Ward was.
The run of fighters as well, one after another, that he went on.
Exactly, and completely exposed Butte. Butte had been protected up to that point, been fucking the beneficiary of fucking extremely dodgy fucking referee and fucking behavior, and he obliterated him, absolutely obliterated him. Durrell gave him. I think Durrell probably edged that fight. I would say he was robbed that night. Like, but it depends what you like. Again, in Nottingham, he's not going to get that one. But
Rob, if you put
one fight maybe on your whole career,
115, 113 to Durrell.
One fight on your whole career, you know what I mean? One fight like that. Yeah, he took on Pascal when Pascal was fucking considered.
That was a great win of Pascal. That was
absolutely fucking stuck it to him, like, for the whole fight. So as much as I criticize Froch's persona, I have to give it to him as a fighter.
Can I say something?
I agree with that.
If you want to move on for this, Steve, I don't know, but just to say, as everybody knows, I'm not a Karl Froch fan, but I was there the night he beat Butte. The place was fucking ram-packed, right? And I saw myself, this is a fucking pure fight fan, up on my feet, roaring like fuck as he's laying the business on fucking Butte. I mean, that 5th round was just chaos, man. It was fucking bedlam. I've got Romanians standing next to me at ringside and that, and I'm like, apologies, by a bit. I said, but what a fight. And they were like, yeah. And they were petrified, but like, what the fuck, man? It was a fucking bear pit in there. And Ray Leonard walked to the ring as well before the fight.
Yeah, I remember Butte's head just snapping back after a big right hand. I mean, I tell you what, Froch could have been, because do you remember Eddie Hearn stormed the ring?
Yeah, could have been
disqualified there. Yeah, I mean, look, it very, very rarely happened.
Big risk for Hearn that night, by the way. That was a pay-per-view fight. They paid Butte fucking millions. Froch took a big fucking, for what I was told, a big back end.
That wasn't pay-per-view, that.
No, it was regular Sky.
It was regular Sky.
Regular Sky. It was the last. It was probably one of the last world title fights on regular Sky.
Yeah.
They paid Butte millions for that fight. It was a big.
They had to get him out of Canada, didn't they? Because he wouldn't leave.
Exactly. I mean, he was making fortunes out of Romanian television and Canadian television. Big name French-speaking Canada as well. So, yeah, it was a big draw back in the day.
I remember a girl that was in one of my videos, and actually Oisin Fagan was in it, and she was from Romania, and she looked like Mila Kunis, and she was a big Butte fan, and so was I at the time, obviously. Oh yeah, Butte can beat.
You're shameless. Right, boys, thanks very much. I haven't got a fight for next week, so we'll leave it. Maybe come up with something during the week. Who knows? It's gone to Belly of the Weeks. Episode, what are we on again? 371. Rob Kelly's with us, Andy Patterson and Ozzy Smith. Not as many this week. Obviously, things are starting to wind down. No boxing on. Mojo Perry is the first nomination. He's going on about Carl Froch, but he accidentally tagged in Carl Frampton by mistake. At Carl Frampton, you keep talking about Calzaghe, but you never once mentioned fighting Krusher Kovalev when he was on. You were scared and retired. Accept your second, Calzaghe. Come out and fight Beterbiev if you feel like you're so good. Frampton a bit confused.
Imagine Frampton wanting to fight Kovalev.
I know, yeah, exactly. Could you imagine? Brutal. Amir Khan is back on it again this week. Together we will knock out #Corona, #COVID-19. Then Amir threw in one of his little cartoons, knocking out some kind of green monster. And shout out to whoever it was on the Facebook page. I didn't get your name. I think it was Matt something, sorry. He put up a picture of the monster over Canelo's head with Khan lying on the canvas. So I thought that was quite a good one. But Amir Khan, the gift that keeps on giving. Ted Barrett has nominated Bellew of the Week for Eddie Hearn. If you don't like a Tony Bellew, you're not a proper person, says Eddie. Also, nomination for Dillian White. Well, I mean, leave him alone, Rob.
What the fuck? Right, well, guess we're not proper people then. We don't know Tony Bellew. You're not a proper person. Oh, for fuck's sake.
Good old Tone. Ted's also nominated Dillian White for calling Andy Ruiz out on Twitter. We offered you 5 million, he said, then sent proof of an email only offering 4 million. Ted says there's enough for 30 nominations in that IFL interview alone.
For fuck's sake.
The boys are at it. Here's one, Andy, that came in for me and you from Marcus Bellinger, former guest on the pod. Bellew of the Week for Tyler Goodjohn. Fair play, he's found himself a new career. Check out his timeline.
He's some man, isn't he? Oh, he's balls deep every night, man.
He's shamelessly getting the booty.
He's engaged there now.
Yeah, licked. And he doesn't care, man. He just doesn't give a fuck, does he? So,
listen, I don't know. I mean, it takes a special person to allow your missus to go and get trained by somebody who's fucking 12-inch girth and that, you know.
Didn't he say to some fella, hey, mate, don't call her a slut, that's my wife?
Oh, that was analysed boxing, yeah. That's another story in itself.
Man,
I've got a question.
Well,
does he touch his size, do you think?
I don't know, but as a fella once said to me, get in where you fit in. You know what I mean?
Bit of advice on a Sunday night from Rap and Rob Kelly there. And moving on, Aussie, you mentioned this earlier, Marius Wack against Kevin Kingpin Johnson. You've had a chance to think about it now. Pay-per-view is calling. Couple of quid, Aussie, ready to lay down Bellew of the Week. These haters are nominating this for.
Well, I've ordered it. I just couldn't refrain myself. £2, bargain of the year to see two stalwarts of the heavyweight division.
Wack against Johnson. Dave Lee will be all over it, no doubt. Cocaine Dawkins has nominated the great man himself, Tony Bellew, talking to The Sun, or being quoted in The Sun anyway. Tony Bellew considers stepping out of retirement to make a fool out of former heavyweight champion Andy Ruiz Jr. Tony back in the papers. Keith Thurman and Adrian Broner are having a bit of beef back and forward. No doubt the PBC are trying to set this fight up. Thurman responded to Broner, who said he would knock Thurman out in 2 rounds. Broner ends me in 2 rounds. Oh my gosh. AB doesn't end his grandma in 2 rounds. He doesn't throw hands. He doesn't throw 2 punches in 2 rounds. Okay. He throws 2 punches in like 4 rounds. Says Keith Thurman. So going in on AB.
I don't know about that, Keith, because he has form against grandmother's son.
I wouldn't be the same without AB getting nominated. Daniel O'Reilly is getting on the Mike Tyson hype train. He's been nominated by SD7. Mike was doing the pads at 53 years of age.
Oh, didn't mention this. Fuck.
Here, Andy. Power on it. Best heavyweight of all time, says Daniel O'Reilly, and would still take your head clean off with every shot. I think it was Jake at Tugboat who put up the last time we saw Tyson was 15 years ago, quitting against Kevin McBride.
Well, I'll tell you what, I actually responded to that tweet, right? And it was by a gif for the... Oh, what's the guy's name? Jose what was the fucking guy? Remember that massive uppercut that he landed? He went 10 rounds above anyway. And,
Jose Ribalta.
Ribalta, that's who it was. So I responded to Mike's fucking tweet just with that gif, with that uppercut. And the boy actually got up and fought like 6 rounds, whatever it was. And off that, I've had 4,000 likes and 500 something odd fucking retweets and that. My phone just never stopped all weekend, man. So an L for me there, like an L for me, but But can you imagine breaking into his house and no fucking noticing him? That is what you're going to get met with, by the way. Iced, body organs fucked.
That was the night the woman that lived with Customato, who when you're a child you naively believed was Customato's wife. That was that was the night he said they said, "Hey Mike, were you satisfied with the stoppage?" And he was like, "No, I wanted to push his nose up into his brain. There's a part where you could hit his nose and it would drive it up into his brain and render him dead. I wanted to hit him with an uppercut to end his life." And she fell out with him and said he shouldn't be saying that. Like, so he.
Oh, was that Revolta? He said.
That was a change. Okay, no, that was a change, mate. I remember that. Eh?
Yeah.
A very early change in Mike Tyson. That one, like.
Yeah.
Listen, hey Rob, do you listen to his podcast these days?
Yeah, he's on fire, man, is he?
He's actually good. He had fucking who was the mafia guy, Michael Franzese. He was really good in that. He's all connected. Like,
he had Eminem on it, and Eminem was talking about a Kronk guy schooling him at 14. But I remember Manny said
on as well.
But Manny told me that.
Manny said that he's got a good left hook, apparently, Shady.
Yeah, no, Manny told me he could fight. Like, he said by the end of the time he was training him, he would have been able to get in with like a top 20 welterweight, like and hang. Like, he said he was very good. He wasn't giving himself credit on the pod, but that's just the way he is. But he said, yeah, he could definitely fight. Like, he had to bring it out of him. He said, but you know, if you're going to the Kronk, you're going to fucking, that's all it is. Like, it's a couple of rounds of skipping, a couple of rounds on the bag, and the rest is sparring. Like, so you're going to learn on the job. You know what I mean? You can either hang or you can't hang. Like,
ahead of his time. They could have put him into one of those celebrity matches with frigging KFC and that other chap. You know,
who said he'd knock out Tyson with a couple of left hands? That guy.
Hey Rob, was it Eminem that said, or was it Tyson had said that he'd been told that his left hook was pretty good, as in talking about Shady?
Yeah, and then he went on to kind of degrade himself a little bit, like when he was like, or degrade himself when he's like, this kid beat the shit out of me and I knew boxing wasn't for me. But according to Manny, anyway, that's what he told me. He said he was very good left hook and could have hung with in his weight division in the top 20 by the time he finished training with him. But they say that about a couple of fighters, and they say McGuigan said that about Daniel Day-Lewis for one of his roles, that he trained so hard that he could have hung, and other people said that about De Niro when he prepared for Lamada.
Barry went in and trained Freddie Flintoff. You can take his words to the bank.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You say Robert De Niro could have beaten wives at any weight division. He was so fit.
Good stuff. Nomination then for Daniel O'Reilly. Moving on, Andy. Michael Hunter saying he would fuck up Tyson Fury. Hunter wants that payday. Yeah,
he's wanting all that smoke. Well, the problem is he's going to meet in the fucking furnace. Come on. I've tried. I watched 6 rounds of the Povetkin fight before I switched it off, and I'm right in saying that he kind of laboured. I mean, Fury on that fucking Wilder. You're only good as your last fight, basically. So Hunter was shite in his last fight, and Fury was awesome. So I can only go that Fury's going to absolutely waste him. So we'll just leave it at that.
Fair enough. Reverend Derek Gemstone has nominated, I forgot to screenshot the girl's name, but we were doing the Perfect Fighter the other week. You know, pick a jab, an uppercut, a chin and that. Anyway, Sky got on board and they did their own version of the Perfect Fighter. And the Reverend Derek screenshotted this young lady anyway. So for footwork, she had Vasyl Lomachenko, speed, Pacquiao, power, Tyson, body punching, Josh Warrington, stamina, Muhammad Ali, uppercut, Canelo, left hook, Loma again, right hook, Morales, jab, Mikey Garcia, defense, Triple G, chin, Canelo. Yeah, it's going on quite well. Reflexes, John O'Carroll.
She's got to be Irish. She's got to be Irish.
I forgot to screenshot her face and name, but yeah, John
Please
O'Carroll.
Tell me she's Irish. She's got to fucking.
Who put that poll together, John O'Carroll?
I like Josh Warrington as well, but I would never pick him to your ultimate fighter as a body puncher. That were two obscure picks. I like Warrington, good fighter.
Yeah, there's something off there, eh?
If we're picking like a perfect fighter, the names Warrington and Carroll don't come anywhere near him.
Something off.
It's not best beard, asshole. It's best reflexes.
Right, listen. Anybody listening to us right now, I want you to find out the Twitter account that sent that, and I want you to find out primarily Irish.
Oh, we'll have a look. See if you can find out, boys, as I move on. Yeah. Well, one of the weeks, I know Lee the Alcoholic Froch put it in a couple of weeks ago. We're going to do the worst fighter. So the fighter, we're going to put it together a perfect, imperfect fighter with all the worst attributes. So,
Right.
like the worst at taking it to the body, worst chin, least heart, worst stamina. So
Can we not just say Robin Deacon?
Good old Robin. Right, boys, moving on. Gavin Stevens has nominated Regis Prograis. Regis tweeted out, I went on vacation in Mexico 2 weeks ago and I got conned into buying a timeshare. I put 13 grand down and pay $694 monthly. I never got to use it. Every time I call and try to schedule something, it's not available. They fuck me raw with no lube on. I need to cancel that.
Love it. I absolutely love it because see this guy, by the way, this guy is a black Eddie Hearn. Yes, a black Eddie Hearn, right? Because
is he not Dominican or something? This guy.
I don't give a fuck, mate. Listen, he's got dark skin, so he's black to me, right? I don't care if it's fucking matte black or fucking milky black. He's black. He said when this fucking virus started spreading exponentially, he's like, he says afterwards there's going to be so much opportunities in property. So if you've got loose money lying around, basically, he says go around and buy empty properties and build up your portfolio. Right? That is the Eddie Hearn fucking type of fucking business sense. Right? Okay, fair play. That's what he wants to do, but then he's fucking moaning about getting done by some fucking Mexican. Oh, delicious. Absolute delicious. I love it. That's number 2 so far.
See, the listeners are going to think I've fucking been fucking compromised or something tonight, but I have to give Eddie a bit of credit. In one of his interviews there, I saw a clip of it. He was saying, like, how come the news are not reporting any good shit? Like, how come every day it's corona deaths? They did not give us any hope. So Eddie is moving against the machine. Maybe there's a heel turn in the fucking in the near future for Eddie Hearn. Evening, Ed, by the way.
Edward, good evening. And the LDBC. Yeah, fucking wankers.
Morons. Absolute muppets.
Well, there's no Bellew of the Week from Hatton. He says nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. So he's team Prograis and team Eduardo here.
I like
shit
Prograis,
goes wrong, bye, says Hatton.
I like Prograis. I really do. I mean, when he was over here for the Taylor fight, he was very, open. The press were very, impressed with him. He opened up everything. Every demand that was made of him, he met it and put up a fantastic fight. I like him as a fighter. Just
everyone knows Andy is Prograis.
some of his shit, and I've seen him up close. By the way, I was at the Taylor Branchik fight when him and his crew walked in, fucking peacocks. You know how they fucking preen about, fucking necks up in the air and stuff like that. Wankers. You walk about fucking Glasgow High Street like that, by the way, on a Saturday night, you get fucking stabbed. Then you start that pish. But so I know what he's all about. He's all about the business as well. That's his fair play. He does his bit, but just doesn't mean to say he's not got a bit of wanker about him.
Final nomination for boxing writer Andy McGee. There's a few decent ones here. Rob, who have you got? Any nominations? Any nominations for you, Rob?
Yeah, Eric Kelly was on about Ryan Garcia not being natural at 135.
Massive.
Saying that he knows there's cheats in the camp and he stands by his opinion. And lots of people are bringing genetics into it and saying he's going to go to 40 very soon. And then he's comparing him to Floyd, but Floyd is naturally smaller and this, that, and the third. But anyway, basically a conspiracy that Garcia is on the dope big time. So there's conflicted opinions in Eric Kelly's world about this, but it's worth throwing in or just drawing attention to, really.
You just say as well, nobody seems to fuck with EK, by the way. So
Frank Warren as well, by the way, man. Frank Warren from his IFL or Boxing Social or one of these fucking carry-ons. He's going. I think it's Rob Tebbett checks him about the fucking relationship with Eddie Hearn, and Eddie said in an interview that he'd walk by Frank and gave him a little wink, and Frank was like, yeah, I actually remember standing outside a restaurant and he walked by and went on the other side of the pavement, but he definitely didn't wink. But I know he's got a reputation for being a big winker. So Frank 1-0 to Frank over the weekend. Evening, Edward.
Oh, shit.
Evening, none from Aussie. Andy, any nominations from you?
Yes, I've got 3. Got one for Deontay Wilder. Get rid of the grasses and the snakes in his camp. He says, I've got a lot of time to think about it. He says you can have a lot of great people about you, but you can't control the jealousy of the people. So you think people are happy with you, but everyone wants what you have, but then want to sacrifice as much as you. So who the fuck's he talking about there? Actually, who's the one to sacrifice?
Maybe Jay Nady or Mark Breland want a bit of the missus. Is he thinking that way? Is he gone paranoid like that? They want what you have. Maybe Jay Nady's trying to get next to the missus. All cuddled up on the sofa.
Oh, what? And he's going on like people are envious of things they can't have and have to weed out.
Yeah.
Against certain things.
They want this big suit, but they can't have it. They want this big Black Panther suit with the fucking laser eyes, but they can't have it.
JD's.
He goes,
what a fucking bagger.
We've had a lot of people reach out, but we've had to be careful because some people just want publicity. Boxing is very, very crooked. It's dirty business. You've got to be careful. It's a corrupt sport as well. You've got to be careful with the people and their intentions, especially when they aren't around you before. Oh, honestly, fuck, man.
The fuck out. This guy's lost it, man. He's lost it. Any chance he had, to me, the only chance psychologically he had in the rematch is if he starts trying to pull Fury's card on the Nandrolone stuff and the charity stuff, trying to fucking like really kind of turn him into the bad guy publicly. But that's the only hope we have. But if he's going on like this, like he's absolutely living with himself on the inside because he knows in his heart that he absolutely got sparkled and it's got nothing to do with snakes in the grass and fucking people on the wife or whatever is up with him this week. They want this big suit.
Honest to God, man. What? He just... Oh, the excuses is incredible. Next one, Danny Flexen sent us one and actually apparently some women's fight news on Twitter. Apparently says Ebony Bridges against Shannon Courtney are at a very similar point in their careers. Not at all different to Groves against the Gale, fighting early in their careers, and that was a pay-per-view event.
I'm Team Ebony Bridges, Andy, so I don't mind seeing her in anything. She could cough corona all over me any day. Have you seen her?
Yeah, mate. She's your age as well, mate. She's 33, so she's not a prospect then at this point.
No, I'm 38 next month. I'm going away from Ebony.
Yeah.
Too old.
Every hole's a goal, mate. Last one, Errol Spence. So he's saying that he's back. He's 100%. He's during this time he's training. More time with his daughters and stuff like that. Says I'm back. I'm 100%. No restrictions. I'm training except sparring. I can't spar yet because I've got my teeth. Because wait. Because I got for fuck's sake. Because I got my teeth knocked out and they put 3 posts in my mouth. Once they heal, I get my teeth permanent and then I can start sparring again. So the Black Jesus has got posts in his mouth.
Marcus Madonna hasn't got his teeth, has he? Somewhere, like in the glove box.
He's going around like a fucking 1980s centre half with no front teeth. All I want for Christmas is my two front teeth.
He just needs a Terry Butcher sellotape on the head. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that one. Right, who are we going for then, Ozzy? Who are you going for? Belly of the week.
What was the ones you read out again, Steve? If you've not got any else,
I've got Regis Prograde was a good one. Tony Bellew, you had a few. Eddie Hearn. I like Daniel O'Reilly, who said that Mike Tyson's the best heavyweight of all time.
Okay. Nah, I've got to go with the guy that tweeted Carl Frampton, calling him out and saying he should fight Beterbiev.
Mojo Perry, yeah,
has to be him.
What was that one?
And that was Mojo Perry who tweeted out and tagged in Carl Frampton instead of Carl Froch, saying, "Why didn't you fight Calzaghe and Beterbiev and Crusher Kovalev? You were scared." That is a good one, I must admit. That is a good one.
It's a belter.
Go on, Andy. Who are you going for?
Oh, what was that other one you just mentioned about just before?
We've got Bellew, Amir Khan, Mojo Perry, Eddie Hearn, Tyler Goodjohn, Wack versus Johnson, AB and Thurman.
Tyler Goodjohn.
Tyler Goodjohn. No, what was the one? But there was another one you mentioned.
Daniel O'Reilly going on about Tyson being the greatest heavyweight of all time.
No, the one before that.
The one about John O'Carroll's reflexes?
No.
Regis Prograis.
That's it, Regis Prograis.
Right.
Regis Prograis, because he got shafted. He got shafted in his timeshare, but he's doing the he's doing the CS selling windows. Oh, it's the Christ. He's telling us that to go and buy property, and he's getting fucking shafted on Mexican time units. Oh, fucking moon unit, that cunt.
Who would have thought something could go wrong in Mexico?
Oh, what? But I'm loving
Mexico,
it.
for that matter.
Oh, Mexico, fucking Waco, fucking kind of that end.
You're going for Prograde then, yeah?
No, well, I'm thinking Prograde, but I've got Wilder and Spence in my head as well. And
Come on, hurry up.
But mate, the LDBC are listening, and they're giving me hate at the minute. That's 3 black fighters I'm putting up for the
LDBC, would you ever fuck up? Just watch
LBC,
the Andre
isn't that
Ward.
the radio station? in
I
London
didn't
or
even know
something?
who these fellas were until recently, like, but watch the Andre Ward confrontation with him, and I'll tell you all you need to know. Or watch the E.J. Smith videos on him, and I'll tell you all you need to know. Just don't even be drawn light to those absolute moon units. Get out of here with that shit.
Yeah, well, I want to know why we've been. I want to know why we've been criticised. I want the evidence from where we've been called out and criticised. I want to listen to it.
They can't criticise this with me on the panel anyway, because all my favourite fighters are black fighters, so they can't fucking go and fucking do one with that bullshit.
Jason Chukwu came on once. What's their problem?
Yes. Listen, we had one of their chief co-conspirators on here before, Steve Cunningham, ex-world champion. Yeah, fuck's sake.
We're friends
Give
with
us a
everybody.
break with that shit, man. The LDBC. Would you piss off with that
shit? I think it is. What it is I think it's me's caused all this shit, actually. Sorry, guys. As you know what I'm like.
Who would have saw that coming?
I'll explain. So what's happened, right? What I think's happened is I've gave somebody shit on Twitter. Seaman Devon Haney mentioned that I'll never let a white boy beat me or whatever it was. Somebody's quote tweeted him, right, and says, "Oh, brah," I'm paraphrasing, but he says, brah," he says, you should have said this on when I had you on my podcast. So I fucking tweeted it back and I says, fucking begging for fucking views or whatever and that, because just all you're looking for a controversy comment so you can fucking promote the shit, right? Next fucking minute, I'm getting shit off all these other people and that. I'm saying to myself, there's a fucking common denominator here. They're all black on their fucking profiles. And that's just started putting two together. So they've obviously then seen my profile, they've put onto the podcast link, checked out the YouTube channel, listened back to some fucking episodes and that. And one of the guys who I think's maybe on it is Jay Rosales, who I've actually had dealings with in the past. He's actually quite cool, talks history and stuff like that. So he's somehow got tied up with A-Gunts. But that Fred Hawthorne, by the way, that is one guy. That was a guy who chinned Eddie in Vegas about 9 months ago. And you've got that other wee fucking prick, that young Pyro or young Poro, who's fucking saying that Tyson Fury had his fucking glove known properly, that wrapped up at the wrist.
Oh, is that them? Right.
That's them, yeah.
That wee wanker who fucking said that he was willing to go to the high or their equivalent of the fucking court because he's got the evidence this week, and then fucking within 2 seconds breath says, I'm ready to go next week or next month or whatever it was. Absolute fucking heed the boss.
Forget that absolute shithead. Like, he was the one that came up with the whole conspiracy. Yeah, E.C. Smith's done some brilliant videos on it. Just watch it. There's a real telling point where he's trying to put Andre Ward in a race war basically against Kovalev. Kovalev's like, look, I'm half white. I don't think like that. Like, so in your man's like, but you say them, and he goes, yeah, but you're assuming that you know what I'm talking about. I live this sport. You don't. Like, and he goes, well, we're both multimillionaires, Andre. Get the fuck out of here, man. A multi-millionaire going around with a camera, fucking chasing fellas to Vegas for a fucking soundbite. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. Like, and take those notions out of the sport, because reasonable people don't think like that, you fucking morons.
Yeah, well said. Right, we've had our say on them. We'll not be discussing them again in the future. Right, so you're going for Pro Grey, Andy. Ozzy's going for Mojo Perry. Who are you going for, Rob?
It's a close one. Like,
Spence. Go for Spence, Rob.
Spence is a good one. Wilder's a good one with this suit as well. Like, everybody wants what I have. They want cuddle my wife on the sofa and wear my big suit. But like Bellew for fucking saying that he wants to fight fucking Ruiz would fucking smash the fuck out of Tony Bellew, man, at heavyweight. Turned on. See him doing press ups and all on Instagram. If Andy Ruiz stays out of McDonald's, man, he made light work of Tony Bellew, and fuck off. Leave him alone. Don't be pitting him in heavyweight fucking super pay-per-view fights. Just leave him alone. He wants to be left alone. Tony Bellew, again, undisputed.
Well, there you go. It's going to be a 4-way tie because we've got Bellew, we've got Regis Program, we've got Mojo Perry. I am tempted to go for Mojo, but I like that Errol Spence one. I always go for the one that makes me laugh the most, and that definitely made me laugh the most this week. So we're going for a 4-way tie, I think.
So he's not got his teeth in yet. He's got three.
Like step-toe.
He's
Got
got
like step-toe Errol Spence.
Yeah, but
step-toe Spence.
Harold. What I need to know is these 3 posts in his mouth. Harold.
You dirty old man. Right, let's finish up then. Well, congratulations, Belly of the Week. We'll give an interim, a gold, a regular, and a world championship to whoever the 4 were anyway. Let's finish up then, boys, 20-11. Thanks to Rob for coming on, for Andy, and to Ozzy. We also had Donny on in some shape or form. Good to know he's alive anyway. And thanks to Samo Mason as well for jumping on earlier. Has there been anybody else, Andy? It's been a long night, hasn't it? I don't think there's anybody else coming, has there?
Donny's been on.
Donny, yeah, we got Donny.
Good Donny.
Donny was controversial tonight. Some of the things he was coming off with. I'm not going to have him again.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake. Disgusting.
Can't shut him
Yeah.
up.
Let's finish up then, boys. We'll see you all again next
Always
week.
bringing it back to porn, Donny, isn't he? Like, he's just fucking obsessed with it. Like, fucking relax, Donny. Like,
yeah, but he's married now, mate. So what that's what happens.
Probably on fucking OnlyFans, splurging the fucking college fund.
We need to put him on to Tyler Goodjohn's channel.
That college fund's been... That college
Tyler Goodjohn, you know what, man? Do your thing, man. You're not hurting anyone, I don't think.
Well, I don't know so much. I'd say a few people will be walking funny the next morning after some of the clips that they've been retweeting. Right, thanks everybody. We'll finish up episode 372. See you all same time, same place next week. I've been Steve Wellings. Bye.
That's why you love the chippy.